This is episode 8 of the D6 Generation with your hosts Craig Maverick Gallant, Russ Goose Wakeland, and Rafe Hollywood Granger. Up first is Rapid Fire. It's a little bit crazy, but at least it's short.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming at you with the speed of a well-thrown brass D20. I'm Geekly McNerdigan, your host. Today, as always, our panelists are Russ Feels Like the First Time Wakeland, and Rafe Can't Fight That Feeling Granger. Let's begin. Issue number 1. In 1974, E. Gary Gygax and David Arneson, working off the miniatures rule set Chainmail, launched the first version of their fantasy role-playing game inventively called Dungeons & Dragons. Since then, the iconic, globally recognized role-playing tour de force has undergone 2 revisions, with 1 or 2.5s thrown in to keep the lingo savvy. In June of this year, Hasbro, knee Wizards of the Coast, knee Tactical Studies Rules Inc. will be releasing the long-awaited version 4 of the game we all grew up playing, making fun of, or avoiding. Question: did this game need further revamping, and if so, what was the one single thing about the 3rd edition, or 3.5, or whatever, you wanted to see addressed? Rafe, I never thought of that. Splat the bat.
I wanted to see addressed how spells were being handled under the old...
Alrighty then, Russ, I overthink, but blink at the sink.
I wanted a race that had dragon blood in it, baby.
And so, who in their right mind would want to trudge through a dreary and derivative fantasy world when there is so much magic and wonder in the real world of Warcraft? Just kidding, I'd rather take a bullet. Issue number 2! On his personal blog, Monster Insider, Eric Yapple, or one of those things, one of the designers of the PP Kaiju game Monster Apocalypse, has recently posted a new segment he calls What Makes CMGs So Awesome. It's a lengthy treatise that goes on and on about the history and development of the gaming industry. Although glaringly refusing to mention GW by name, he does mention Wizards of the Coast and Magic the Travesty. What he does not mention, however, is the C in CMG. Question: is there any player-oriented argument in favor of the collectible miniatures scheme, or is it purely a marketing strategy that benefits the producer at the expense of the consumer? Russ, the moral high ground is where I'm bound.
Except for that one glimmer of hope when you first pop open the package, no.
Rafe, PP Grand Prix, shopping spree.
Listen, collecting is fun.
Wrong! Of course there's no excuse. It's a blatant play at your darkest fears and weakest personal flaws. It'll be interesting to watch the PP faithful twist themselves into logic pretzels on the defensive, though. Issue number 3. One of the greatest challenges to gamers everywhere is trying to get the people they enjoy playing with organized and focused enough to get some games in. We've all tried just about every enticement, organization, and trick in the book. There's leagues, tournaments, campaigns, game nights, game days, kidnapping, and the ever-popular hostage ploy. Question: what is your favorite way to get people to play, and how does it work? Russ, the middle of the road is my personal code.
I like leagues with hostages. Please.
Rafe, what works for me is the P to the P.
Why does Russ sound like he's on Jeopardy?
Wrong! The solution is quite simple and sitting on your desk right now. Staples. Issue number 4. Games Workshop is in full marketing blitz, gearing up for the release of the mildly vaunted and not overly anticipated 5th edition of their primary IP, Warhammer 40,000. Amongst the possible updates and drastic changes to cover saves, vehicle damage, and the definition of scoring units and mission objectives. Question: what is your favorite animal and why? Rafe, it's a punk. I'm a hunk, not a skunk.
I like jackalopes.
Russ, the funky chunky monkey.
I'm going to go with my daughter's answer, which is unicorns.
Amazing! To a question with no right or wrong answer, you've both answered wrong! Everyone knows the coolest animal is the lion. 2 words, gentlemen, king and harem. Thanks again for listening, and good night.
You're listening to the D6 Generation. We just love playing around.
Welcome to episode 8 of the D6 Generation. I'm Russ Wakeland.
I'm Craig Gallant.
And I'm Rafe Hollywood Granger.
So in this episode 8, we got a very exciting chance to check out D&D version 4 and a little preview event. So we're going to talk about that
later. Shout out to Dan at Myriad Games.
Yeah, they hooked us up.
And Jean-Michel, also known as John Michael.
Yeah, they did a great job. We'll talk more about that in depth in a little while. And in the second half of the show, we're going to talk about organized play and different ways you can get your friends together and experience the games you love.
I still vote Staples.
And isn't that like a play group? Is that when your mom calls for you, Russ, and you get
Play
to
date.
come over and have a play date
date.
with Craig?
Yeah, this is not a play date.
Oh, okay.
But first, achievements in gaming. So, Rafe, what was up with you this last couple weeks?
All right. Even though it's a light week for me, I've got a lot to say. Okay. Secret announcement.
We don't know what it is either. All we see is secret announcement.
Right. All right. So it's a lighter than normal gaming 2 weeks for me because I was in the real live Hollywood for 5 days at a bankruptcy convention, which would seem really boring to a lot of you, but to we debtors attorneys, it was actually quite exciting. And on a more of a guy note, this isn't exactly a gamer note.
So women, please turn down your volume.
Yes. Right. I'm really not one of those rubberneck kind of guys. You know those guys that like look at every blonde in a skirt that walks by. But oh my gosh.
He prefers brunettes.
I do actually. Or maybe redheads. Okay. But
Leave my wife out of this.
scantily clad women everywhere.
Well, that's an achievement.
Hollywood. Surprise! There's
Yes.
scantily clad women in Hollywood.
Unbelievable. Okay.
So, wait. Now, was that the secret
Yeah,
announcement?
I'm still...
What
No.
happened to the secret announcement?
It's at the end. You gotta wait for
Oh,
it.
it's a teaser.
It's a teaser.
He
Yeah.
did spend too much time in Hollywood.
Yes, he did.
That was a teaser. I painted my Man of War shock troopers.
That's
So-
I'd say that's pretty
All
much
right.
a classic achievement
Okay.
right there.
Yep. Nothing exciting in my MMOs. I'm going to skip that. It's boring me. Oh, I read.
Now, wait a
some-
minute, though. Wait.
Yep.
So you've been playing your MMOs again, though.
Yes.
Yes.
So now, are you enjoying them again, or are you still not liking them too much?
They're back into balance, and I'm going to explain that when we do the Hollywood Minute. But I would say what I did differently is I've grouped with my friends.
Okay, I'll give you an achievement for balancing.
So yeah, balance. Yeah, balance is good.
All right.
I'm reading some great comics now, which I hope to build a segment in later on in the episodes. But if anybody just wants some good comic reads for adults, meaning the story themselves are good, I recommend Lock and Key, which is written by Joe Hill. Powers, you've heard me talk about that. The New Thor, written by Michael Straczynski, is really kicking butt. Good luck getting your hands on that.
Fame?
Is that the same guy that writes Babylon 5?
I don't know. Did he write Babylon
yeah.
5?
His name, that's the same name of the guy that wrote Babylon 5.
J.
There
Michael
can't-
Straczynski?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there can't be that many J. Michael
Okay.
Straczynskis
I mean, his
running
name was
around.
on the back of the space station for like how many episodes?
I don't know. I didn't watch
Yeah.
that.
Wow,
All right.
that's neat. Well, at least he's getting work.
That's good.
And the Avengers series, which has some really cool adult-themed, The Skrulls, which I don't know too much about them, and that's written by Bendis, who also writes Powers.
Cool.
Would that be the Bendis that dies in episode 1 of Firefly?
Probably not.
Is it?
I doubt it. He's dead.
Firefly. Oh.
He takes a bullet to the chest.
Well,
I
I
don't
thought
think so.
that was.
And he's a fictional character.
It is
Well, I
not-
thought that was Straczynski for a minute there writing Firefly. I got confused between Firefly and Babylon 5.
No, that would be Joss Whedon.
Okay, all right. Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
All right, because Bendis and them, he takes pot shots at like poking fun at the other comic writers. In other words, about
okay.
stuff like that, like
Gotcha.
killing off Straczynski in one of his mags and things.
Aha.
Okay,
Oh.
I
I'll give
read
you an
up.
achievement for reading. That's always good.
Okay, good. I read up in detail on the plane to California, the new No Quarter. I'm very psyched for Legends. Russ, aren't you?
I am very much excited about Legends.
Craig, no.
No.
Okay. I watched some oldies but goodies on the plane. The movie called Best in Show. If you haven't seen that movie, it's
Pretty
hilarious.
funny.
That is a funny film.
And The Usual Suspects. You know, an oldie
Awesome.
but a goodie.
Great film.
I do want to hear about Craig's Wings of War.
I want to backhand you, so we'll do that 2 in
That
1.
will be a future show.
All right. This is too long of a segment. Don't seem to want to be on Xbox. It has to do with playing footsies with my wife and things like that. That's too confusing to put into
How
here.
the- What?
Shut up and let him move on.
It's true. I wasn't lying there.
This is the part where you need the negative achievement again.
That the
We gotta get that going.
Okay. Oh, hey, you know what we didn't tell people?
Your secret announcement?
No, I'm live.
Oh, yes, we are all in the same room again.
That's right.
The beautiful studios high atop the ivory tower at the Wakeland compound.
Suspiciously near my basement.
It's
Okay.
the lowest tower you've ever been in.
Right next to the Barbie castle. My
Which
daughter's play area.
Can make tea, actually.
Right.
No, that would be the Ariel stove
the Little
that
Mermaid
makes
play
tea.
set.
For instance, bacon, anyone?
I don't think they can hear the sounds.
No.
Okay.
Right.
He's ready.
Sorry, Ariel interrupted
Achievements for working in a pink environment. We'll take one of those.
me. All right, here's my secret announcement. And the great thing about my secret announcement is Nobody that this affects listens to the podcast,
Ooh.
other than my DM. Shout out to John Potter.
All right.
Carrick has resurfaced, and I'm back in my play.
Hey,
by
wow,
the way.
yeah.
Yes, now he hasn't made his grand appearance yet. So far, it's just John and I, as Carrick got swallowed by a nether worm, as I call it, and he's now on the nether plane. And his fate is quite unknown.
Wow.
Basically,
Isn't there a
sucked you out of
song
the
about
campaign
that?
because you weren't showing up.
Oh, no, that was Charlie and the MTA, not Carrick and the Hellworm.
In the nether plane.
In the nether... Carrick in the nether plane, and will he ever return? No, he'll never return.
I don't know that song.
We'll be editing in this episode, apparently.
No, come on. All right, I'm done.
It'll stay.
I'm done.
Craig, you're up.
I'm up. Alrighty. Well, I had a big... I was low last time, and I've got a lot of stuff this time. My wife broke out Carcassonne the Castle again.
Achievement for getting your wife to break out a board game.
No, I don't need... She does it all the time on her own. I'll just walk into the living room and it's set up already. I beat her again, which leads me to believe that her strategy when she beat me 36 times in a row was solely and completely based upon one misreading of the rules, that once we fixed that, she hasn't won since. But we're in the middle of a fight right now, so nobody tell her I said that.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Craig.
What?
When she's waiting for you and she's busted out the board game, is she, wearing anything kind of slinky?
I'm going to hit him.
Oh, my God.
You are well within range.
Again, we
my
need the
friend.
negative achievement.
Okay. I spent all last weekend clearing trees and building a huge cedar swing set, which doesn't sound like gaming, but one of the tools I used to clear the trees was a chain halberd, straight out of the Berserkers
Nice.
of Corn war
Or a
gears.
chainsaw. Now, let me ask you this. You have no children.
Yeah, are you trying to tell us
It was for
something?
my niece. No, it was for my
There's
nieces.
some kind of an announcement going on.
No.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
what I
that was a
thought,
secret
too.
achievement.
No, it was for my nieces. Thank you. But
All right.
yeah, it's an awesome, it's a little mini chainsaw mounted on a big pole. I had a blast and tried to hide from my father the fact that I was enjoying using it far too much. Let's see. We had an impromptu game night with Russ's brother John and his wife Susan.
And we would like to point out that, again, Granger and I were not
Invited.
And I would like
invited.
to point out to you the definition of impromptu.
And
Russ's brother lives approximately 5 minutes away from me, so when their children go to bed early or are in a quiet mood, we get a phone call, and we go over and we play some games.
and you know what, Russ? John wasn't playing WoW. He actually played the
I know,
game.
that's pretty
That's
shocking.
absolutely right. We played Blocus a couple times, and I lost both times. Although I'm starting to develop a theory about playing games in couple groups, and I'm going to comment on that in a minute. And then we played Last Night on Earth, which is a pretty cool zombie movie. It's very beer and pretzels, very fast and loose. It reminds me a lot of Betrayal at House on the Hill, except that it's all after the haunt. So it's all just zombies versus townsfolk. It's a lot of fun.
Are the rules at the end of that game a little better? Because Betrayal's fun, but the rules are a little fuzzy in this one.
No, the rules are pretty fuzzy here,
All
too.
right,
This
fair
is
enough.
very much a beer and pretzels party game, but you can't lose because it's zombies eating
I like
people's
zombies.
brains.
Zombies good.
And then Russ and I did go to Myriad Games. Once again, shout out to Dan, shout out to Jean-Michel. Yay! His name's John Michael, but one of the composers of Les Mis, I teach theater, and one of the composers of Les Mis, his name is Jean-Michel, and I have to listen to that documentary twice a year, so it's stuck in my head.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Just to explain that. And we had a great time. We had a really, really great time. It was our friends Ragnar and Dave and Pete.
Yes.
And with Russ and I, and we had a really good time. We made a really cool little party and killed a bunch of kobolds and almost died in the process, but we'll talk about that later.
I was in Hollywood.
You were getting ready to go to Hollywood.
Oh, no, I just came back. That's what it was.
Oh, yes, returning from Hollywood. I think that has to do with the footsies and the wife thing.
Yes.
And a man with no priorities.
Playing WoW.
Project Lojog moves forward. I spent a great deal of time putting together models and painting them. I'm not yet ready to reveal it. Let's just say that I really enjoy putting together plastic models
I know what
over
it is.
metal, no matter what. I think you both probably have a good idea, and I think
Right.
Russ probably knows completely, but it's a secret.
I'm not going to say.
And I finished updating my terrain and my mission cards. I put some IP neutral images on them. They should be good to go. I'm not so sure about the missions now, because I mentioned all the special rules by name and everything. So I don't know. I'm probably just gonna.
So it's
You
looking
want 'em-
bleak?
No, I'm saying you want them. What do we know when we're going to get those email accounts? Do we have a
next week?
Okay, next week we're going to have D6G specific email accounts.
Right.
And so check our website. When you see those are available, email me and I will email you these IP neutral cards.
There are changes to their website coming soon, so you'll know.
We got all kinds of neat stuff in the works.
I'll make an announcement.
Cool.
I went and saw Chronicles of Narnia. Thought it was okay. I liked it.
Now, how would you rank it to Indiana Jones versus Chronicles versus Iron Man? And Speed Racer. Throw Speed Racer. You've seen them all now. You saw every movie in May, which is like
so
$120 worth of movie seeing there.
Right there. Except that I go in the middle of the day.
Smart.
I would put in order of preference Speed Racer at the bottom, Chronicles of Narnia, and then probably Indiana Jones, and then Iron Man.
For originality on Iron Man.
For originality on Iron Man, I think I don't know. I think the balance of silliness was maybe a little bit off for me on Indiana Jones. I still loved it, but it was a little silly. But Chronicles of Narnia I liked better than the first one, and only after I read a review that explained it did I understand why. Because it's pretty much a ripoff of Lord of the Rings. So if you're jonesing for Lord of the Rings, that would be your movie. Let's see. And then we had a Memorial Day cookout and game night with Karen's friends that blah, blah, blah. We don't get invited, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada.
Right.
I thought I'd save you guys the time.
I have to say, you do have some cool friends that play these board games with you in couple mode.
We played...
And Rafe, I should mention that, Karen didn't like your board game that much, yet she's playing all these hardcore games with Craig.
I'm beginning to take it personally.
What's going on
I think you should. I think she was like, I'm not going to play any games over Rafe's house.
I do. I agree.
We played Wings of War. The gentlemen, well, the ladies watched wedding videos. The gentlemen played Wings of War. We loved it. We're talking Wings of War, Dawn of War, the World War II version. Really enjoyed it a lot. We were planning on playing it on Tuesday and having a major review today, but I'll get into that in a second. And then we played Carcassonne, the full out group version, and I ended up in a 3-way tie for second because of a little concept that I've come to call conjugal king-making.
Oh,
This would be
This wouldn't have to do with what your wife's
when a
wearing.
boyfriend,
kitties. Now it's time to turn down the radio.
It's okay. It's okay. Listen carefully. This would be when the spouse or significant other of a player in the game makes a move that doesn't help them at all, but it helps their significant other.
Oh, kin-making.
King-making.
Oh, it's also kin-making.
No. Leave me alone. Conjugal king-making. There I was. I had a brilliant strategy. I was going to win. And our friend, Carrie, makes a move that doesn't benefit her in any way and sets up her husband for winning the whole game, and I end up tied for third. And I'm bitter. I'm a little angry. I'm a martyr.
Doesn't show at
No,
all.
not at all. Good.
Interesting.
Good. We played Lord of the Rings, the co-op game, and a bunch of you guys have been asking us to do a review, and we'll probably try to get it sometime in the future. It's another good co-op game. I didn't like it as much as Shadows over Camelot simply because we're hardcore. We're really good at gamers, I think, way above average. And that game kicked our asses 3 times in a row until all the men decided, you know what? It was by that time Brian, the other guy, had left. It was Andy and myself, and then Cherie, Karen, my wife, and Carrie, the conjugal kingmaker. And Andy and I were like, you know what?
Not right.
We're out of here. We can't take it anymore. The game's kicked our asses 3 times. We made it to Helm's Deep once and to Shelob's Lair twice, and we had enough. So maybe we need to play a little more often, but I don't know. I also developed a concept I'm going to start calling the chain gamer concept.
Interesting.
My friend Brian, we're playing one game, and meanwhile he's got the rules to another game underneath the table, and he's reading them. So not unlike a chain smoker who lights his next cigarette from the last one, Brian reads the rules to the next game while he's playing the latest
I think
one.
I like Brian already.
Yeah, really.
Brian is a hardcore chain gamer.
Can you freaking bring him on Tuesdays?
Hey, he's a rocker, man. Well, Andy's going to come on Tuesday next time, so you'll meet him. And then Brian has a lot of stuff on his plate. He's the guy with the video game in the basement, and he's in the cover band, and he does a lot of stuff. We might even be having a custom.
Is he gonna do our theme song?
He's gonna do a theme
Cool.
song.
I don't know what a theme song would be, but
I don't know either, but I'm working with him on that. And then we talked a little bit about Pandemic, which is the new co-op game that everybody's talking about, which is supposed to be brutally difficult. It's in Europe right now because the shipments of it to the United States got stopped by border security because the word pandemic appears
Don't
on the
print
manifest.
Pandemic, or come out with a new game like Biohazard. I just don't recommend it.
Terrorist attack.
Terrorist suitcase nuke
Or
would be a bad.
C4.
That would be a bad name, also.
Did you ever see those episodes of South Parks with the Snooks?
Yes, that's one episode,
Those are
and
great.
Not really family fun.
I
fare.
didn't get into it.
Yeah, and then that was last night. That brings us up to last night, where I was supposed to play Wings of War with these two schmoes, and then due to a sick child and a World of Warcraft date that Rafe had, we're not going to do Wings World of whatever. What is it? Wings of War tonight.
That little plane game.
Let me ask you a question.
A little playing game.
When was I available to start playing games Tuesday?
What?
3 p.m. I was available
Right.
from 3
I was-
to 7.
Now, I was
When does the school bell ring?
kickboxing. I was
When
kickboxing.
does the school bell ring?
I was
All right,
prefer-
separate,
Okay.
drop it, move on.
You need spray us with water when we get like that.
I need a cat bottle. Down.
So anyway, I went and saw Indiana Jones, which I already talked about.
All right, fair enough.
Just tell me it's a rope. That's all I got to say about that.
All right, well, you guys use up all my time, so I'll try to be brief. First of all, a quick clarification. Last time we talked about mulling mechanics. We had a new segment. Seemed very well received. Everybody commented on it. But we did get some rabid AT43 fan feedback.
And we mean foaming at the mouth, rabbit.
And what I said was they didn't cover, in the AT43 rule set, they don't cover deployment. And I got all these quotes about pages and whatnot. Well, I found those pages. I knew about those. But what I was trying to be very specific, I was talking about when there's a deployment zone on the map. They tell you where it is. They define what a deployment zone is, but they don't really define how you deploy into it. And after I said that, more specifically in the forums, everybody agreed to that. So that's what I was trying to say. But that was not intended to be a review of AT43. We will still do that someday. This was just a us comparing it to other games. Didn't mean to make any AT43 players feel bad. Also, quick shout out to our iTunes folks. I didn't do it last time, so I got to whip down the list this time. We got 2 episodes worth of iTunes. Thanks. First of all, in the USA, Matt Trendar, and I'm not going to read everybody's comments, but he says he hates our board game reviews because he runs out and buys them all. And he's enjoying them now, so thank you, Matt Trendar. Ranger Rob AZ gave us some props. Gun Trend, the Horrible, gave us some props in the U.S. Mess 23. Now, what happens sometimes on iTunes is if the name is too long, they just cut it off. So I got the Iron... I think
The Iron H.
might be the Iron Hand or the Iron
Hammer.
or whatever. But thank you to him or her. We got Munchazuma, No Banjo, and...
That's sad. No banjo.
No Banjo.
That's sad.
Yeah, I would
Is that from Order of the Stick, you think?
be careful.
No banjo. No.
Good dog.
And then also K.A. Talbot, who is Keith Talbot, our local friend. In fact, Keith painted half my Signar army. I'll tell that story someday. So thanks, Keith, for giving us little props. In the UK, we got, I don't know how to pronounce that. What do you think?
Elfwin.
Elfwin. And he thinks we're an acquired taste well worth acquiring. So thank you for that nice comment. I think
Yes.
that's a T-shirt right there, boys.
Acquired taste, well worth acquiring.
Ooh,
We'll have
I
to
like
get to you
that.
on...
All right, and then
Rights.
well, I'll send you a nickel, Elfwin, if we use it. Screaming Grot. Thank you very much. In Sweden, our Sweden's a contender. We got Ninja Gaiden, spelled kind of funky.
No, that's how you spell Ninja Gaiden.
Okay,
actually.
well, he didn't have a space, though. And last but not least, work with me.
Yeah.
Australia, we have Gabrielle, who thinks we sound like a support network for those
That's
addicted
only
to
Gabrielle
games.
if you misspelled it on the notes.
It's not gerbil. Stop.
No, it's not.
All right. Well, thank you again. iTunes reviews really help us out. We are moving up on the ladder there on the other game section. Appreciate it. Thanks again to everyone. And we know we have fans in Ireland, but no Irish reviews, so don't hesitate to be the
Oh,
first.
hey, you got to get out there. Oh, that's more
That was
Scottish.
Scottish.
Sorry.
Yes, God. Now we know why we're not getting Irish reviews. Thank you.
Yeah.
Craig.
I'm offending my.
Right.
I'm Irish, man.
He is Irish. That's the sad part. Have a potato. All right, and now there's
And that would be potato joke 137,000.
in my gaming news here.
Now we're going to get emails like we did from the South.
So, how come you insult the Irish in every episode?
My wife is Irish too, so I'm immune. I have anyway.
Inoculated.
I did watch. Now here's some interesting. Craig will appreciate this. I watched
Okay.
a War Machine demo going on at the Game Castle the other day, and I saw your concern because one of the new players said the other new player, well, you're supposed to play this game really hardcore and mean, which is like giving his opponent no quarter. I mean, I don't mean no quarter to win, but like no help with the rules, and the poor guy was learning. So. Page 5 does get misinterpreted, which is unfortunate.
I'm saying it's not in there on purpose, but it's
not intentional,
it's
but
open
it's
to misinterpretation.
So I was going to say something, but I didn't want to get in.
Yeah, not your place.
Yep.
D&D4 demo was awesome.
Loved it.
Craig's already covered that. GTA 4, I've finally figured out how the online party system works, and Vince and I had a great time with that game. It's still rocking that game. It's awesome fun. And I picked up Battlelore.
Which is bad, because that means I'll probably end up picking up the supplement.
Now, Battlelore, we will definitely do a review of Battlelore, but the game is huge in terms of scope and everything else. But I think it might be the solution to my need to have an army scale game in my life that doesn't require me to paint thousands of large models. So this may require me to paint thousands of small models.
Because he is painting, and I saw them.
I did. I got the core game, and I started painting the models. I got unit archers done, and they're a lot of fun to paint. You know what?
And they look good, too.
If you like painting, but sometimes you find yourself getting frustrated when you paint, I found this happened with me with War Masters. If you change scales completely, it's like a whole new world opens up because your painting techniques are different.
Yeah, the whole thing is different.
And it makes a lot of fun.
Yep.
It really gets a nice breather. And then when you go back to your first love, which for me is War Machine or 40K, whatever it is for you, it's like going back to an old friend, and it's another different feeling. So if you find yourself wanting to paint but kind of feeling bored with your current army, try a different scale game or just a different model or something. It's a lot of fun to switch out. Saw Indiana Jones, and the movie is an Indiana Jones fan. In fact, for me, Indiana Jones is actually cooler than Star Wars, believe it or not. I loved it. And I'm very excited about the new Lego Indiana Jones game coming out.
That's the big one.
My daughters are excited too. They like the Lego Star Wars games, and they can't wait. And unfortunately, as Craig mentioned, I did miss gaming this week, so my gaming achievements are a little small. I got one more achievement but I did get in because my youngest daughter was sick with pneumonia, so she's in the hospital. She's getting better now.
That means we're running 50-50 on good excuses, bad excuses.
That's right.
So that's our...
I know the achievement in gaming has gone really long. I feel a lot of pressure, too, about it. But it's funny how Russ is like the silver-backed gorilla of gaming, because anytime...
Why the silver? What the?
I don't get it, and I'm afraid because I want to.
I didn't want to ask.
The silverback gorilla is the leader of the gorilla pack.
Oh, okay.
Is he the first one shot by the hunter?
I think so.
Well, I don't know.
It'd be the first one I went after.
But my point to that is only that, so when Russ doesn't show up, everybody bails. Everybody bails. It happens every time.
I don't know.
Yep.
Maybe not.
I don't know.
Okay.
I've been there without Russ.
Let's think about that.
From the dawn of time we came, rolling dice down through the centuries. We are the D6 generation.
We stand, and here we fall. History won't care at all.
And now, what's in the news? Fantasy Flight Games has published a free rule set on their website for creating your own characters that can be played in the Descent board game. Scientists are becoming concerned because the game has begun to blur the lines between board and role-playing games so much that if a D&D rulebook is placed too close to a Descent box set, a rift may appear in the space-time continuum. Monsterpocalypse, the new collectible miniature game scheduled to release this fall from Privateer Press, has recently updated its website. There's now much more faction information, previews of the battle mat included in the starter set, and more. Still no sign of Joel and the Bots figures, though, which should be required for any game of this type. You know, he's the guy that worked at Gizmonic Institute, just a regular guy in a red jumpsuit. La la la. And finally, the Games Workshop UK website has recently started accepting pre-orders for a variety of 40K 5th edition items, including the Collector's Edition with a tri-fold hardcover rulebook, the Gamer's Edition with counters and a metal carrying case, and a spiffy new official laser pointer, which will help you determine model's eye view for line of sight. So wait a minute. So 5th edition is going to play faster and cleaner, but you need a laser pointer. Sometimes, folks, the jokes just write themselves. And that's what's in the news.
G'day, this is Jeff from Podhammer. When I'm not looking for that dingo that keeps taking our babies, I'm listening to the D6 generation.
Well, it's time now for our much highly anticipated D&D 4.0. Does anybody really care about this? D&D 4.0 preview. And now, since Hollywood didn't get to play the game with us because he was in Hollywood.
Had just come home from Hollywood.
Hollywood. This is probably the most times I've ever said the word Hollywood in one show.
Hollywood!
Or Bollywood is going to interview, or something like that, Craig and I about the game.
Craig and me.
thank you, Craig and me, about the game to find out our impressions of our brief D&D4 session. So without further ado, take it away.
Hollywood! Why, thank you, everybody. Now, I want to start with issue number 1. No, just kidding.
God.
Craig,
Yes.
you had some concerns about this interview process.
I used to teach journalism, and a bullet point interview, in my mind, is an invitation to disaster. I don't know why we're talking about this on the podcast. It doesn't reflect poorly on you. It reflects poorly on me as a teacher, for my mind is now narrow, and I am jaded.
But you know what? If it makes you feel better, he's not following the bullets, and it's already a disaster.
Yeah, I don't notice that bullet on there. Let's sandbag Craig bullet. That wasn't there.
So maybe if he sticks to the bullets, it'll get better.
Yeah,
let's try that.
All right.
It can only go up.
Here we go.
Okay.
So with 4.0 coming out, I just have to say, I just long for the day. I can remember dungeon planning, dungeon crawling, making characters. Man, it was so much fun. And I'm just hoping that the D&D 4.0, now as I approach the big 4.0 myself, can it be that fun?
Do you think they meant that? Did they plan that to coincide?
They did.
They were looking up Hollywood.
I am Hollywood after all.
Hollywood!
So, Craig, I am going to throw this first one to you.
Okay.
Tell us what the overall structure of the demo was.
Well, the overall structure of the demo was we walked into the store, Myriad Games, and they had a table all laid out with a map already on it. And we were pretty much like your standard role-playing scenario. We were all sitting around a table, and the GM, John Michael, was at one end with Dungeon Master screens and everything.
Did the screens look cool?
No.
They were the
It was
old
all
screens.
old Ravenloft screens. It wasn't. It was
The only thing new was the map. I think the map was new
And the
D&D4.
booklets, yeah.
And the booklets, because in each grid it was a full color map with terrain, but then each grid there's a little icon next to the trees. There's a little tree.
I've seen other D&D
Is that
maps
old?
that had that, but I don't know. I think that map was specifically for this
so too.
scenario.
So wait, are you saying he pulled out of his old D&D bags, his screens, or these were the new screens?
No. It was old Ravenloft screens.
Okay. all
He
right.
said he didn't put the new stuff up because he didn't want customers to hang around and watch.
Okay.
It was
okay.
a private
So they're coming
demo.
out with some new screens.
It was
I'm sure.
It was
Yeah,
a
sure.
private demo. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
The store closed while we were there. What would you say? It was mostly a combat oriented because in a couple hours.
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 encounters. There was a little bit of role playing at some of the things,
Yeah,
but what are you
yeah.
going to?
Exactly.
You don't know these characters. So
we had the opportunity to do a little investigating, little exploring, which was neat. We had no investment in these characters, so it wasn't like we were going to do a lot of role playing anyway. Although I did get to use that really bad Scottish accent a lot because I was a dwarf, and of course now they've all got Scottish accents.
I do love the dwarves.
Yeah,
Now-
you will love the dwarves now, my friend.
You said set up for combat. You don't mean D&D 4.0. You mean this particular demo, right?
Yes.
It was focused
Yes.
around the
This,
combat
yeah,
system.
the demo itself was focused around the combat system.
All right. Now, when you said the dwarves were new, is that one of the things that jumped out at you, Craig? And then we'll hear from Russ.
Well, I think the general power of the first level characters is what jumped out at me the most. But as far as a new mechanic goes, the healing surge was the thing that really
Well, they had pre-made characters, right?
Yeah,
so he had
yeah.
a bunch of pre-made sheets.
printed
that were
out and everything. Really
printed
nice
out.
quality.
They're really nice. They have
Yeah.
everything. And they had one for each race. We had one guy was a thief. One guy a rogue.
There was a halfling rogue,
There was a cleric.
half-elf cleric.
There was Pete was a mage,
Human mage.
and then you were the dwarven
I
fighter.
was the dwarven
And
fighter.
I was the dragonborn paladin.
That's cool.
Dragon-born paladin.
So
is now
Russ,
core race, yeah.
new race.
Well, you told me you've seen dragonborns before in D&D, so they're not new to old school D&S, but it's a new core race in the main rule book, in the
Okay.
playbook.
And just to go back a step, when you say these sheets were printed out, are they going to give like a cool disc where you can?
No,
like,
I think
do
these were just
character
made for
sheets?
the demo.
for the demo.
He didn't have all the books. This was
Right.
not. He had a sort of a DM's
it was like a
demo
packet.
So we didn't actually see the 4 old books in all their glory. All we saw
Right.
was like this little demo packet and then little sheets. So it was obviously a pre-made thing to get
The
people started.
weakness of the demo is that we've got a sheet here in front of us with all of the numbers and all the calculations already done for you. So we don't know the calculus behind how you figure out what your healing
or how you
surge
generate a
does,
character,
or
right.
how you generate a character. We know. It was really geared towards quick, fast, fun play
right
at the
in.
demo.
Yeah.
Jump right in.
Okay.
You had all the numbers, all the dice rolls you needed without really a lot of insight into how those numbers were arrived.
But what was cool was as soon as you looked at this sheet,
That's grammatically
you could almost
correct.
like walk through your abilities and understand exactly how
Yeah,
they work.
yeah.
It really
Oh,
did that, but
so it was very
pretty neat.
intuitive.
Yeah, the way it's laid out is
And
intuitive.
universal.
Yeah.
It seems
Yes.
like it's much more
Oh.
streamlined and everything's
That's awesome.
yeah.
So I've heard, we're all hearing that this is new. So what jumped out at you as new, Russ?
The biggest thing I think that jumped out to me as new was that what's focused on in the front of your character sheet, your
I don't know, your stats, right?
Well, no, the stats are actually on the back.
Hidden on
a
the
little tiny
back.
thing. The
Really?
most important thing to look at is your hit points and your healing surge numbers and your surges per day, and then 4 main stats: your armor class, your fortitude, your reflex, and your will defenses.
All right, now hold on. Back the truck up.
Yeah.
What's a healing surge?
Brand new.
This is the newest concept, and it's pretty cool, but it took me a while to get my head around how it worked.
It's very cinematic.
Your healing surge value is the number of hit points you'll get back per healing surge you use.
You can do this to yourself.
Well, hang on to get to that.
Oh.
So, it's half your current hit points rounded up. So, no, it's not. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's not.
No, I don't even know what it is. No, it's
Some number.
half of
Some
half
number.
your current hit points rounded up or something like that. So my guy started with
25%.
my level 1 paladin started with 27 hit points. Okay, he gets bloodied at 13, which basically means he's at half value.
Which
And
has
his-
effects on your
His
abilities.
healing surge
Oh.
brings back half of his bloodied hit points, which is 7. Now the deal is you can do a healing action, a healing
surge to yourself once per encounter.
once per encounter, and it takes you a standard action. So like D&D 3.5,
Yep.
you can move, you can do a standard action, you can do a minor action, right?
Yes.
So I can do that. But you also are limited to your healing surges. You can have, depending on your constitution, I think it is, I could do 11 surges per day.
The dwarf could do
Which
12.
seemed kind of weird at the beginning. So I'm like, 11 surges per day, but I can only do 1 surge per encounter. So unless I have 11 encounters per day, I'm never going to use them all. But what's interesting is there are other abilities that other characters can use, or you can use yourself, depending on your class, that can let you do extra surges.
Specifically,
So-
the cleric's spells
Yes.
now are tied to the surge.
And the paladin
mechanic.
has abilities too that
Yeah.
can do surges.
All right,
It's
well,
like,
so
Let
instead
me
of
pause
like,
you there because I'm a little bit baffled. So you said you thought that 11 would be too many to use in a day, and then you just told me other people can do surges. So now I'm thinking there's way too many to use.
well,
in
that's
a day.
what it,
No,
that's,
no.
no.
11 is the
Go ahead,
total
Craig.
you can do no matter who causes them.
Right.
Oh.
So what happens, right, exactly. So what happens is you can do once per encounter on your
On your
own by
own with
saying,
no help.
I fall back and heal up. But-
Take a second wind is how
But
John
clerics
Michael
have
kept saying.
clerics have spells they can cast at will that is like do a healing surge now, do a healing surge now, do a healing surge
And
now.
it's usually augmented too, so it's like take a
Okay.
healing
So-
surge plus D6.
so the
or
cleric
something like that.
so the cleric is healing you, but when he's healing you, he's really letting you draw on your inner strength,
Right.
Okay.
which is
It
limited
costs-
by this number per day in your constitution. So no matter how many clerics are in your party, at some point you're going to basically run out of healing
Yeah.
surges.
All right, and I have to pause you there too. It is how's the healing surge fluff wise, Craig? Is it like you're just a hero and you can do this? Are you taking out a first aid kit?
Well, you don't want to do it until you're really starting to feel the pain, and at
No,
that
but I
point,
mean fluff-wise.
Right? No, that's what I'm
I'm
saying.
sorry, keep
Fluff
going.
wise, you feel like, holy crap, I need some help,
Yeah.
and you have to step back from the fight for a second.
Do you get
because
a-
it
does
takes
that-
your action.
Well, it's a full action, so you
It's
don't
a
want to
full
be
action, so
Does
you
that
don't want to
provoke
be.
opportunities?
Yes, it
Yes,
provokes
it
attack
would
of
if you-
opportunity.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
basically, what it is you're kind of like you're like Russ, watch my back for a second. I need to take a breath, and you're almost kind of like recouping some of your strength.
What I felt to me like was that it's your second wind. That's what the DM
Yeah,
described it as,
yeah.
sort of like your character's second wind, the one you do for yourself. But then what it also feels like is no matter how powerful a cleric's magic is, your base constitution only allows you to heal so much in a given 24-hour
Your
period.
body's got limitations.
So like that 11 surge means no matter how many clerics are casting heals on you or whatever, you're only limited to. I was limited to 11 surges, and once I hit that 11, I knew I was done for the day. Now I never even got close to that, but that, so it did feel like there was a nice control over how many times you could heal.
Okay.
But what it did feel like to me was there was a lot of healing going on.
Yeah. Oh, and we asked the people that had more experience if we were taking more damage than normal, and Ragnar in particular said, "Excuse me, that we were taking a lot more damage than you would have in 3.5."
See, I like that. I think that's going to make the game more dynamic. Who wants to stand around and get hit by one dart?
Not only that, but yeah, well, the huge thing I thought was the number of hit points you have at first
Yes.
level. I mean,
Good.
even the wizard had
23.
23
Awesome.
hit points.
No,
That's
we're
how
all
it should
level 1.
be.
I had 27. You had.
I had 20, I can't remember.
Good.
Yeah,
but
so you have a
somewhere
lot
up
of.
there.
Well, that's good about that though is it gives you more granularity to do stuff to characters because
Yep,
if they have 23 hit points, you can actually wound them without feel of accidentally killing the guy as a DM.
Yeah, I mean, because what I did around 3.0 and 3.5, you just start at level 3, 4, or 5.
Right. Or if you're a wizard in 3.5, you've got one spell, and if
Right.
you're lucky, 4 hit points. And
Right.
you shoot off your one spell and hide for the rest of the battle. And
A
that's
rat-
a blast. That's a blast
Yeah, that's
right
fun.
there.
A rat farts on you, you're dead.
Exactly. Harsh language puts you down for the count.
All right, now I just have to ask. I know at the risk of being long, but I just have to ask. I don't get fluff-wise. You get sliced by a sword, and you take a second wind and you heal your gash.
You're not healing well, that's actually because that's another thing. You heal all your hit points as you sleep.
Yeah, one night's rest gets you back to full.
So it does seem a little bit video gamey.
There's
at
a
that
little
point.
bit, yeah, and I think
You've lost a little bit of the holdover and the realism.
Okay,
well, I think what you're doing, and you can, of course, you can fluff justify anything, but in my head, what happens is
that's what I want to hear. I want to hear the fluff.
being a hero. That slice that would have taken out a regular guy became a minor wound that you're able to kind of shrug off.
Okay,
I think of it that way.
Well, yeah, think of Conan at the end of either of the
That's what I was
movies.
thinking,
He
it's
looks like
Conan,
a
actually.
He's
bloody
cut up,
mess
but
by the end.
but
but
the
he's
next
still
morning he's
fighting.
out taking on the bad guy again. So
Exactly.
you're definitely you're a hero like a video game in a way.
So we're Legolas now, and we're Conan now. We're heroes. We're built.
Your heroes at level 1. They say that you're already a hero. You basically by level 30, you're essentially a demigod. But at level 1, you're a good. You're an awesome.
Okay.
hero.
Now, I said that it seemed what we were just talking about seems very WoW-like, and what I mean by that is what Craig kind of just said about being cartoony. Russ, what are your thoughts on that? And then Craig.
Well, first of all, I like to point out that lately it seems like Rafe has been comparing a lot of things to WoW. Have you ever seen those cartoons where the drunk guy gets drunk and everything he looks at starts turning into a cask of whale or wine?
Or The Simpsons?
I think you just become so addicted that everything you look at is WoW. First of all, you have to remember that D&D started the role-playing game, so WoW is like D&D, not the other way around. But to be fair to your question, I guess you mean like it's cartoony because it's over-the-top combat-y? Or?
No, this whole,
I think like the marketing placement.
No, the healing buff.
Oh, well...
The healing buff, that's right. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I was like, that's what MMOs do.
Well, yeah, I guess some DMs would mitigate low-level characters by giving lots of healing potions or making some kind of... Like, one of the things that I always used to do was
group heal.
herbs.
I mean, which I think is cool.
Yeah. You definitely can dish more damage, take more damage, and it goes away faster. So if that's
which
like
translates
WoW,
into more action.
Yeah, it just makes
I
the
think
game
it just
more
makes
dynamic.
it more fun.
Oh, I agree, but when I read...
I don't know WoW at all, so I
mean,
can't
here's
really say.
us old school from 80s.
Yeah.
A cleric had to lay hands
Right.
to heal.
Yeah.
And now there's a group heal. That's what I mean with WoW-like. That's all I mean, which I think's cool, but I want to know what you guys think. You don't play
Well,
WoW.
I don't play WoW. I've never
Right.
even... I mean, other than, like...
It feels like you're more of a hero than in prior versions.
Okay.
So that, but you're also... It does feel a little more... I guess it's... Let's put it this way. I think it's come full circle in that video games were definitely influenced by D&D. And now some of the better elements of video games, not just WoW.
a good point.
But any video game, like in Halo, you get shot by a bullet and you wait 30 seconds and you're fully healed. You know what I mean? Like,
Good point.
So it's more of the realism isn't always fun. And so what I think people have discovered is that it's more fun to have those sort of like over-the-top Hollywood John Woo movie moments than it is to have this ultra-real.
Yeah.
Now you must let out for 2 weeks, but you're stabbing the belly with a sword.
Yeah, oh, God, I hate
and
it.
that's what old D&D was. It was realistic, but do you really want to lie on the belly for 2 weeks and hope for that one healing potion in the continent to get to you? You know?
Right, because the DM's just going to say, okay, advance the story.
Right, and then it just gets
Or
silly,
they're going to
right?
feel guilty that nothing's happening, so they'll have somebody try to break into your hotel, your in room.
Craig, did you have a follow-up to that part
No,
of it? Okay.
I'm
Okay.
not really the authority.
Now, I also heard a rumor that they're really going to do experience for non-combat encounters, which I am a huge fan of, and I used to do that in my DM campaigns.
Yeah.
If you're the thief but you want to be a spy, I gave lots of experience for stuff like that. Did you guys have a chance to encounter that in the demo?
No.
see
we talked
anything
about it a
about
little
Mentioned
bit
experience
because
a little
I had
bit.
read about that, and what I have read, and this didn't really come from the demo, was that they talked about doing experience, having a built-in system for experience for role playing, and they didn't do it because it was too subjective. But there is now a built-in experience system for quests to sort of make it, to give DMs a guideline on the idea that there should be some compensation for following
For
and completing
non-combat
an objective.
activities.
Right.
Like being an investigator and things like
Right.
Yeah,
So that's
I agree
in
with
there,
that.
but it's still got huge amounts of DM latitude, and really it's all the DM. I think it's just officially codified and put in the book.
that. Okay, but
That's all.
you know what? But that's a good start because I was like one of the only DMs in the world that gave this. I'm talking about when I played in the 80s.
When you get older, though, I think a lot of DMs started doing that for role playing.
Oh, they did. Okay,
and we used to.
cool.
I mean, my brother used to give out XPs for having a painted model on the table and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think
all right.
I think it was interesting.
Okay, I heard there's some sort of online component. It's not WoW. Craig, have you heard anything about that? This map or something?
Yeah, well, I've heard hearsay, and it sounds awesome. It sounds like you've got your battle mat that you would be fighting on with your miniatures and everything, but it's in the computer as a 3D battlefield, basically, or dungeon or whatever it is. And each player is theoretically on a different computer.
Right.
Okay, and your computer has the program is instructed whether you are carrying torches or you're an elf with infravision.
That's cool.
And so what you can see is dictated by your character and the equipment that
I
they
like
have and their racial abilities.
Yeah.
So so basically, if I'm the DM, I can send you. Or you say, Greg, I want to move forward. I say, okay, you go ahead and move forward. And nobody else at the table is going to be able to see what you're seeing.
Love it.
Okay?
Love it.
Now, the key is with that everybody's going to have to be bringing their own laptop to the table if you're going to use it in a live
Or you can play
scenario.
remotely, right?
You can play
Well,
remotely.
the cool thing is, theoretically, if you all had headsets and
Ventrilo servers or whatever.
Right, or Skype or something, you could all play remotely and have this cool battle map, which would be much easier to get
Right,
together.
but
Now-
that's you two, like, gamer
Oh,
weirdos.
yeah.
and-
I got tons. I got
mean,
tons of questions on this for Russ. But did they talk about this at the demo at all? No.
I missed the first 25
I
minutes.
asked him
so-
about it, and because
Right,
I read
Russ,
a lot
yeah.
about it, and I've seen some of the previews that came out of some shows last year. But the all he knew was, I thought it was going to be like CDs you buy or something, and he thinks it's going to be a web-based tool.
Probably.
That you get logins or something from codes in the books or something, and you're in, and then you pay services to be on. And he thinks it'll also be tie-in. So, like, if you want to drag it on the map, it'll be a symbol. But if you have a code from like one of the collectible miniatures, for that dragon,
Oh, yeah, I remember
it'll
that.
become a fully animated, cool model. So basically, like, there's all these cross-promotional.
Yeah.
If you buy it, you'll have
pretty
cooler.
genius
So
stuff.
it's going to be like Webkins with D&D.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? Like, imagine. I mean, but fundamentally, even if you just went to tokens and very simple and took all the marketing stuff out of it, which is probably pretty brilliant, it's still a cool concept, because the idea that basically you have a virtual battle mat, and I don't think it does a lot of calculation. I think you still need the DM on the other side, But if you have a pre-purchased module, maybe the maps already be pre-built for him to bother laying them out. I can see a lot of potential for it. So sounds really cool.
All right, back the truck up, Wilson. I need to know the.
Wilson. What?
It's an old 80s.
He's already said
80s?
back the truck up twice.
90s reference, 90s TV reference.
I know who
And Russ,
Wilson is, but why did he back the truck up?
I'm not going to tell
He
you. It's
never
a
mentioned the
quote
truck.
from a TV show in the 90s.
Tim the Toolman Taylor
Yes, that's what
never
it is.
said back the truck up.
Yes, he did.
No, he said, how do you spell that?
He'd go, whoa, 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 back the truck up, and all
right,
sorts
anyway,
of
go
things
ahead.
like that. Or maybe it was Wilson that said that. I don't know. All right. All right. I need to know Russ as our code guy. Russ is our resident tech guy. Okay. Craig's the DM. He has this cool 3-level dungeon. How the heck does that get into the computer?
Well,
And tell us if you know or you've read the
know,
same
I
stuff,
don't know.
so we can tell.
But
if
I
it's
assume
demo.
you can lay. There's a dungeon builder with the system. Then I also assume that
Okay.
you'll be able to, if you have a pre-purchase module, you'll type the code in and it'll have it all done for you.
And how do and I have a character and you have a character. How do we get those in the online thing? If you know.
I don't know that either.
Okay.
It could. I don't know. The basics of your character will be in there, but then the question is going to be, how much does it automatically calculate for you versus how much do you do manually? I'm sure there'll be a virtual dice roll that you hit the button and the D20 shows everybody.
John and Joe were talking and said you could completely
It looks awesome.
dictate what
the videos
guy
I've seen,
what
but
your character looks like, and
to get back to the
So-
demo, we didn't
yeah,
see any
yeah,
of that.
okay,
So
so
this is all speculation.
All right,
This is
so
all
let's-
hearsay.
Let's skip the speculation then and go to now. Tell me more about this D&D thing, and the dragon pops up. I didn't get that. You buy a D&D miniature and you.
Oh well,
that's
what
more speculation.
Well, he
it
did
is.
say that the DM guy did say that he thinks that there's going to be a way that the monsters on the screen will be more interesting if you have tie-ins from the D&D model.
Basically, the basic set just has a little token on there that says dragon.
Oh, okay.
But if you happen to have the Dungeons and Dragons miniature figure of the red dragon, you'll enter in the code on the bottom of the monster's
Or something
base,
like that.
and a computer animated icon will appear instead of
So
the
it's a
token.
cooler looking dragon now.
cooler looking
but again,
dragon
that's all
that moves,
speculation. Even he
yeah.
wasn't 100% sure, so that's
right.
total rumor.
I just want to end with one thing I just thought of that I'm wondering if they're going to go this way. End this section on the map computer PC thing.
Yes, Hollywood.
Okay. So imagine this, guys. So So I build a thief, and he's wearing this kind of leather and dual wielding, and he's got a mask. Like, in other words, is there going to be a function where you can build your character?
Yes, that's definitely
Yes,
coming.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you get a code, and poof, there's
You tweak them
No,
out.
I think you tweak them out, and just like
Exactly.
you would for World
It's like an Oblivion. When you
Warcraft
make your
or-
face just right and everything, you're going to have some of that.
Oh, see, I thought it was just going to be random thief, and then if
I
you
don't
paid,
think so.
It's
paid-
dress up Barbie for
okay.
boys or girls. All right. You want to play.
Good.
I mean, it's
I'm
what it
happy
is.
with that. Okay. Now, here's one thing. I keep hearing brand new overhaul again. You know, does this mean Eye of Beholders are gone and Red Dragons are gone and we now have, I don't know, Quizquarks or something?
No, your favorites.
Oh,
will be
I
back.
love Quiz Quarks.
Remember their special ability? Okay.
Hubert. All your favorites will be back, I'm sure, but you will need new stats for all the monsters. There'll
So,
be a new monster manual.
Craig, did you see a new monster manual or no? Did
No,
you
we
see
didn't
a player's
any,
handbook?
No,
or-
we saw
But
nothing.
we can tell you the kobolds we fought are not the same kobolds you fought
Kobolds
last edition.
kick freaking ass,
Oh
man.
yeah, they do.
Oh,
So
good.
and the kobold leader, you can see. I know in D&D3.5 they started doing this where you could sort of like level up monsters, and the DM could sort of take a normal monster and make him cooler, so that it wasn't always a boring. And you saw that again. You saw that the monsters you fought had a lot of the cool abilities your characters had, and then other things beyond that. So when the
love
cool
that.
kobold chief came out,
He was brutal.
cool, and we all knew he was cool because he's coming out by himself to take on our whole party by himself. We're like,
Awesome.
And
you know he's
can't
gonna be
tell,
badass.
like, you can't say, hey, DM, how many hit points does that guy have left? You can't say that. But as soon as he goes to half, the technical term is he's bloodied. It's a new game term.
Okay. So that's
That-
a term of art. Okay.
Exactly. So when the DM says, oh, okay, the kobold chief is bloodied, you're like, oh crap, and if you're keeping a vague tally in your head, we just did 40 hit points of damage
Right.
to him, and only now
So
is he bloodied?
because the regular kobolds had like 1 hit point each.
Right.
And I'd be like tapping them and they'd be dying.
Right.
And then
And
they
then I'd
had
be like,
chieftains.
look at this roll. I'd go up to chieftain and do all my special paladin stuff. I'm like, 28 points of damage. He's like, okay. He takes it. I'm like, is he bloody? No. I'm like, oh my god.
So we met like 3 or 4
Yeah.
of those before the big guy. I mean,
Yeah.
we were getting our butts handed. Thank God for the healing
The healing.
surge.
Yeah, but what's cool about that though is you really felt like there's a lot of drama.
Yeah, it sounds it.
So it was fun.
And you felt like you were actually achieving something. It wasn't like, South Park out killing boars.
Right. I feel very happy that you guys are saying that because that's one of the reasons why I switched in the 80s to, remember we talked about
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
played the fantasy version that Games Workshop
Yeah.
made because I was so tired of everybody having known everything. That's a skeleton. You have to hit it with blunt weapons. Edge weapons are at minuses.
you can-
So this is great that it's the same old monsters we know and love, but they have different abilities.
I think they did some of that in 3.5 because John's talked about it before, but I think in 4.0 it's even more.
Yeah.
awesome.
You can
awesome.
tailor them.
And Russ, we didn't really get into this, and then if Craig wants, he can add too. So what can your paladin do? We didn't so you were like, oh, he can do this, and just give us some talk.
So what
about
happens is, I guess we can go into some of how the combat stuff works. Because what happens is, what I thought was pretty neat about the sheet was the first thing you notice after I talk about the very beginning parts, and then you look at your racial traits and all that is, they divide things up into everything's a power, and you have a section of at-will powers, and then you have a section of encounter powers, and you have daily
Once per
powers.
encounter.
Right. So your encounter powers are once per encounter. Your daily powers are once per day, and your at-will powers are when you want to do them.
Are these different by race, different by class?
Well, that's the cool thing.
All-
What they did was they grouped them all together.
Okay.
But some of them are racial powers. Like one of my encounter powers was to breathe fire.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Now, but
racial.
that was racial, not my paladin ability. And then I also had an encounter power called Radiant Smite, which was a paladin ability. And then as you level up and build your character, you're going to be able to, not every paladin will choose Radiant Smite. So, you know what I mean? The people will be different as they go forward.
Oh.
And what's also cool about this is,
Wait, go back. So there's a little pool of...
I think there's going to be, yes,
Oh.
special
Again,
editions
this
and
is,
stuff.
we don't know that. We've got the pre-made sheets, but
okay.
we think
Yeah.
that these are all choices you make in character
like
generation.
that.
It's
I
like,
like
almost
that.
like feats in 3.5 where you can pick which feats
Yes.
you get. You'll be able to path it. Now, what's also cool about it is
They had feats.
one of the things I read online and I saw it with this guy is that your racial abilities now improve as you level.
Yeah.
Because what they talked about in prior versions of D&D was when you're level 1, your racial abilities, everything as you got older didn't matter anymore.
Right.
But now your racial abilities actually get better as you level up. They get more frequent or whatever. So like the breathing fire gets better, or
like
your
it.
improvision improves, or your ability to dodge as a
Breathing
halfling gets
fire did
better.
a number on those 1-point kobolds.
Oh yeah. baby.
Oh, yeah.
It was imagine it was you look at a grid, right? Grid
Yeah.
hex thing. Everything. Oh, by the way, everything's in grids in squares now. For
And
example,
it
your
doesn't
speed.
Even, doesn't even reference feet
Right.
anymore, I don't think.
So
So it just
all
says move
squares.
5
it's
squares.
all
or
just
something.
squares. Yeah,
Love it.
So basically, how combat works and everything else works is you have these, as we mentioned earlier, in each phase, right? You can move, you can do a standard action, and then you can do a minor action, right?
Yeah.
And your different powers, what they basically say, what's really nice on the sheets now is everything's got basically a keyword on it. What I mean by that is like every power says at will divine radiant weapon, or daily divine healing weapon, or so what's nice about that is it'll say acid damage or whatever, so and it'll also say your attack is like +7 versus AC, and what that means is you roll a d20, you add 7, you got to equal or exceed your opponent's AC, and you damage him, or it works.
Okay.
But other things are like my breath weapon isn't versus AC at all. My breath weapon was +4 versus reflex.
Oh, right.
So the main things are your character, kind of like the old saves, but instead of being saves now, you have an AC stat, a fortitude stat, a reflex stat, and a will stat.
Okay.
So some spells, like Pete had a freeze spell,
Yeah.
and that was against your fortitude, I think, right?
yeah.
Wait, but it's not a save?
No. Instead, he rolls his d20, he adds his bonus, and he compares it, instead of your AC, he compares it to your
Fortitude if it
stat.
was the freezing.
So it's like War Machine.
Kinda.
Okay.
But the stat you compare it to depends on the type of attack it is.
Right. I'm just saying the math. Okay.
The math is
and
similar to
if the
War
number's
Machine.
higher, then the ice effect goes off?
Yes.
Yeah.
But some effects say if they miss, you take half damage.
You take half damage.
Yeah.
Okay.
But some don't. Some if you miss, you miss.
Right. Like, as a dwarf, my abilities were, I had 2 at-will abilities. One was Cleave, which was great.
Love it.
Because you do full damage to one model and
Keep
3
on
points of
going.
damage to another guy. And then there was another one that I can't quite remember. And then once per encounter, I had this really brutal one that was full damage or half damage if I miss you. And then there was once per
Cool.
day. I did this to it took me 4 times. The cool thing is that once per day abilities, you don't lose them if you fail.
Some of them, yeah.
Some of
Depends
them.
on-
Like I had this brutal. My damage went from 2d6 +3 to 6d6 +3 on this one attack, and I missed it the first 3 times in a row. And I probably would not have been having much fun for the rest of the night if I was thinking, because you get so
Okay.
worked up and you're like, oh, this is gonna be awesome,
Right.
and then you miss it. But when I finally did it and it still didn't bloody him, that was alarming. But but yeah, I mean, it's really cool because you don't, for that specific ability anyway, I didn't lose it until I hit, and then when I hit, it was really powerful. You really do feel like, I mean, I was really getting into it with the body motions and everything. It was very kinetic feeling.
Well, here's what's cool too is, and kind of talking about your daily ability, like the Paladin, my daily ability was called Paladin's Judgment. And what I could do is once per day, it's an attack versus armor class, and I can target one creature, and if I damage him, I do a lot of damage, but one ally within 5 squares of me can take a healing surge while I do that.
Okay.
But then if I miss, it still goes off. I don't damage the creature, but my ally still gets a healing surge. So basically, there's an example. I lose my
Okay,
daily,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's that kind of like the daily Paladin lay hands on.
Yeah.
I can get, but again, you don't get any bonus. It's not as good as a cleric.
Yeah.
Because your surge doesn't get bonus like a cleric does,
Right.
but it gets you to give a free surge in.
Like
too,
it. Like it. I
which
like
is pretty
it.
neat. So I thought that was really neat how that worked. Also kind of cool, like on the keywords, all of my stuff, like I have an at-will power called Holy Strike, which is basically swinging my sword. But it's radiant, divine radiant is 2 of its keywords. So you can just see where they're going with this. Imagine a rule that says undead skeleton takes double radiant damage or takes double divine damage. And you can see how all of a sudden paladins would rock because all their radiant damage, which just is a keyword radiant next to it, now has special effects against certain creatures. So you can see how they're going to leverage those keywords and bring it up and make it easy and no rules, debates, or anything. Just, yep, there's radiant.
This isn't a ha-ha moment or anything.
Yeah.
I don't mean it like that, but that's very well. Like Judgment, that's a term in WoW. The Radiant spells, that's what I mean just by that term. That's all. So
They didn't invent the word judgment.
I'm not saying,
But I do
inventing,
think
but
that I think
understand.
it's a marketing thing.
I think what they're
they're
saying
definitely
is-
trying to catch those
Yeah,
WoW
yes.
kids.
What I'm
into this.
saying is there are like 8 million people. The whole population of Australia plays WoW, and maybe they got something here. I mean, because this sounds really fun to me.
everybody in Australia plays WoW.
Well, the line is that the population of Australia is 10 million. And 10
They
million
all
people
play WoW?
But they don't all live in Australia.
All 10 million live in Australia. I'm confused.
Talk to Jeff.
Although every
Talk to Jeff
Australian I've
about it.
ever
I don't
spoken
know.
to has played WoW once in their life.
Really? Maybe it is. Maybe it's a down under thing.
Okay.
Possibly Crocodile Dundee. I don't know. I've never spoken to him. Really.
Quick
That's
question.
not an MMORPG. This is an MMORPG.
Quick question. Are there deities? Like, does the
don't
paladin
know.
get different? Okay.
They
Oh, yeah,
wouldn't get
no,
there.
no, 'cause it
Oh,
did
you know, there
say
is.
he is the-
Yeah. Actually, there is some of that in here because when I was looking at my little abilities here, like some of my things, like, where was that? Let me just. Pardon me. I have my sheet in front of me. I'm looking for this little power here.
Boring.
Oh no, here it is. I had a
Bad
holy symbol
radio.
of Bahamut.
Bahamut.
Yes. So I don't know what my holy symbol of Bahamut does, and we don't have all the background stuff.
I
for
understand.
this.
I
But the
understand.
name Bahamut showed up in a bunch of the other characters too, so we're
Okay.
But
assuming
here's
that
what- I want to
it was a
add
link
one more thing to
between the
combat, though.
characters.
I want to still go on combat. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go.
Well, here's another part that you're going to think's like wow, and it totally is like a video game, and that is the concept of targeting your opponents.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention too is Craig mentioned his dwarf could do cleaves and do. One thing I found frustrating for the paladin was I had no ability to affect more than one guy a turn.
Right.
So even though I'm a fighter class and he's a fighter class, his fighter class could get in there and sweep and take out 3 or 4 guys at once.
Because he has cleave.
But my fighter class could hit only one guy, but people near me seemed to be getting healed, or I had this ability, which was awesome. I had Divine Challenge, and this kind of sounds right out of WoW from the Paladin class out of WoW. I will give you this. What I can do is, or what the Paladin can do, is you basically can pick one target near you and you mark the target.
Right.
That guy essentially is aggro to you. If he attacks another model, anybody besides me takes 6 points of damage.
Aggro.
Yeah, they don't use the term aggro,
No,
though, right? Okay.
But he
What
is.
does aggro mean?
Aggro. It means,
I think he's deferring to me, Russ, being
sorry,
the consummate
Hollywood,
WoW
go
player.
ahead, Mr.
Right.
MMO.
Aggro is an MMO term when the dwarven warrior goes up to the monster.
Yeah.
It's this mathematical computation behind the scenes that makes the monster stick on the warrior, because that's the warrior's job.
Okay.
So that when Russ, the mage, is lancing fireballs at it,
Do you
doesn't
know
run
what it
off and-
stands for?
Aggression.
Yeah,
It's
aggression.
short for aggression. So
Wouldn't that
basically,
be agra?
yeah. Well,
Yes.
What they're basically, the idea is that most computer games, right, have this concept of where to. So what they've done in D&D now is they've made it easier for they've given the player the ability to lure the DM or to take aggro, to basically do that kind of stuff. They might have had it in other games too. I think the barbarian used to do it, but basically what the paladin does. So if I do that, so what it's able to do is.
Yeah.
Our mage, for example, had a guy on him, right? And I was actually hit by a goop potion or something, and I couldn't move. So I'm stuck there. I can't advance. I've got these javelins. Our mage is in hand-to-hand combat. He can cast his spells, and what you mentioned earlier, the mage's daily at-will ability is to cast spells now.
Yeah.
So he can cast like
He's
lightning.
got spells that are at will, spells that are per encounter, and spells that are per day.
Right.
Okay.
So he's
So
over
we're
there.
gonna
but-
get to
but-
that. I wanna get
But
to
when
that
he's in
more.
hand-to-hand combat, he's going to provoke attacks of opportunity. So he's trying to hit with his staff, and he's in trouble. I can't get to him, but what I can do is I can do this divine challenge, and I'm like, and he's targeted.
Love it.
And then he has to now, if he fights the mage, he's going to die because he's only got a few hit points. So he's going to come to me, and now I get to chop the guy with my sword. So that was an ability you didn't really have.
Well, no, I did, but
Yours is different.
yeah.
Right?
Well, mine was not as good.
Yeah.
Because
Does
basically
the monster get a save against the divine challenge? or-
Yeah, we know.
Well, you got to hit versus. something.
Mine actually was automatic. Which is
Awesome.
pretty cool.
That's cool.
But
That's cool.
The range was close burst 5, which means he had to basically be within 5
Five
squares.
squares.
of me.
That's awesome. Because it's cooler to me if it's automatic.
Right.
You'd be like,
Yeah. Well, and the key is that basically what it means, it confers bonuses on Russ's character and negatives on the enemy if they fight anybody but Russ.
Yeah, because I had another
That's
attack,
cool.
and the guy was already marked by divine challenge. I got bonuses to damage.
That's
him.
cool.
So it's like that did feel like WoW to me, where you're setting up a combo.
And the dwarf fighter has a similar thing where anybody I attack, whether I hit him or not, I can mark him. With marking being another term of art now. And he gets negatives if he goes to attack somebody else. I don't get any positives, I don't get any bonuses, but he gets -2 to any hits to anybody but me. So I'm basically like aggravating
That's
him, and
cool.
I'm like, "Hey, you!
And here's a nice clean rules thing. My ability and your ability both stated if the model was already marked, it loses the old mark and takes
Right.
the new mark.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So
clear.
you can't stack marks and make things really complicated because the monster can't attack anybody. 'cause it's-
Again, another benefit
Right.
of universal rules.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's
Oh,
all
that
it
was
all
really slick.
interplays
And the
very
cleric
well.
could do some kind of mark too that was different though. It wasn't aggro, but it somehow sort of cursed them, like some kind of curse thing. So you can see this mark mechanic is sort of this neat little thing that's new.
okay,
That's really
updated.
fun.
And updated.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So bear with me here. I'm going to set the scene. We're going to talk about some combat and magic and stuff like
Okay.
that. All right. So you're in the corridor. Craig's in the front as the dwarven fighter. He has his shield and his torch. He opens the door. Okay, it's a 2x10 corridor. You open up the door, and inside is the Cobalt Chieftain.
Okay.
Craig, what
Yes.
happens? Like, initiative, things like that. Go.
Well, initiative works just like it did before, right?
Yeah, you have initial bonuses. You roll the
get it.
D6.
Everybody rolls a D20.
The D20. The DM's going to have that little list. He's going to.
I said Craig. I said
Sorry.
Craig.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, Russ.
I'm going to corner.
So, and I was under the impression you could do it every turn and re-roll your initiative every turn, but we were rolling one initiative for the entire encounter.
Okay, wait, based off dexterity, based off whoever jumps up
Again,
first.
we don't know what.
Don't know.
Well, no,
Okay.
no. If somebody's got the jump on you, then they're gonna get.
No, I mean in the party. Forget no surprise,
Okay,
no
nope.
nothing.
It's everybody's got their bonus.
Okay.
So it's D20 plus your bonus.
And you guys did group initiative.
And
No.
no.
Oh.
We
By character.
By character, the monsters were all as one
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Is that a DM choice? If
That
you
was
know,
DM
Oh,
choice.
it's a damn choice.
But we had, at one time, maybe 10 kobolds running around the
Yeah,
table,
yeah.
so that would have been
I think he
huge
made
pain
make
in
the
the
leader
butt.
separate though. That one time, I think he had the leader.
Oh, at the
separate.
end he did. Well, at the end the leader was alone for a minute, and then all those other guys ran out.
Okay, Craig, you're the dwarf warrior.
Yes.
Fighter. Excuse me.
Right.
You win initiative.
Okay.
What happens?
I would be charging towards the most dangerous looking
You
kobold.
spend a minor action to drop your torch.
That's
into
what I'm
your,
wondering.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
I'm not even sure you can do both as a minor action, but
Well, see, we were all outdoors, so there was a lot of stuff
yeah,
we
yeah.
didn't have to deal with.
Okay.
So I was actually marching with my maul in my hand.
But I think
so-
all that's pretty much the same as
Right.
D3-5, the
Okay.
minor action of dropping.
Yes,
switching.
so you've got to
all
got.
right.
Oh no, he said a minor. If he said that was different in a clarification, because you can open a door with a minor action,
Yeah.
and still have your major action, so you don't get jumped.
Yeah.
you're not
But if
hanging
the
out.
torch
in
is in your hand and the
breeze.
shield's in your hand, you're kind of like,
Well,
Right.
I think the either rules specify or the DM just says, I'm
Yeah.
going to allow drawing of your weapon
Okay,
is
yeah,
doesn't
so-
count as a free action.
Right.
But
So there you
that's,
go.
That's
So
not what I was wondering about.
I would
I'm
take
wondering,
my
like,
minor action, drop whatever, pull whatever,
Or whatever.
and then charge.
Okay, and do you know how that works?
and
Was that 5 squares
Charging
plus
Three.
four?
Three.
Charging
You
score.
need to have 3 squares in a straight. You have
Yep.
to be able to maneuver, and then get 3 squares in a straight line for a charge.
Yep.
And
Charging's
then it
pretty
was
cool.
+2, was it?
Yeah.
Plus 2 to hit? Okay, and how do you hit? D20 against armor
D20
class?
against armor. D20 plus a
Well,
bonus.
here's what I found in this that was different though. You pick
Go ahead,
your
Russ.
attack.
Yes. Yeah,
So I
yeah,
I
yeah.
found like I never said I'm swinging my longsword or I'm
Right,
swinging my. Instead, I'd be like I'm performing Holy Strike, or you'd be saying I'm going to do a cleave.
Yeah, yeah.
Because on your sheet here, and I don't know if this is how every DM's going to work it now, but it seems like you have your at will powers,
Right.
And you're either saying I'm going to do my. What are my at will powers? So if I'm the mage, I might be saying I'm going to cast Magic Missile as my at will power, and I might say, well, I'm going to do Holy Smite, and you'd say,
Cleave,
because
cleave.
the at-will powers are infinite.
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
And they're all kinds of. So for fighters, your at will powers are all these neat attacks.
Yeah. So and your wizard is now way better than your dweeby novice
Oh, yeah.
apprentice guy with 1 magic missile and
Because
then
his
he
at will
hides.
power is Magic Missile.
I'm going to
So-
save that. I want to
Sure.
I want to hear what the paladin does spell-wise, and then I want to hear you guys about the mage.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So Craig draws his weapon if it isn't, and he
Rush out and
charges,
charge.
and you get to swing.
I get
and
to
it's
swing, and I would say
what?
I cleave. I try to get into a position where I'm got 2 guys in base to
And
base.
is there a little thing that says attack stat or something?
Yeah, well, on the
Well-
sheets we had, there's abilities,
Right.
and the ability will say your attack is +7 versus AC. So Craig will roll
So
a
dice
D20
versus your AC,
always
D20
D20.
plus 7.
Okay.
D20 plus 7.
And that number is all factored in from all your different
yeah,
whatever.
somehow
That's the calculus
that's gonna be
we
the player's
don't know.
handbook.
I'm
That's
with
in the
you.
player's
Okay.
handbook, something
Okay.
like
All right. You hit against the AC. Now what?
I
You hit. Let's
I
say you
did
hit.
2d6 plus 3 damage.
And this little sheet tells you that.
Okay,
Like
yeah,
mine will
it's
say
all on the sheet.
D8 plus 4 radiant damage.
So what you've got to figure is that's your weapon and your strength all
Okay.
factored in. somehow.
And criticals? No criticals? You put
Critical
some fire?
does a natural 20 automatically does max damage.
But there's no critical chart you lop off his
No.
arm. He
Nope.
just takes
It's
damage.
just you take max damage. It's like whatever if your
Max
damage is
damage.
D8 plus 4, it's as if you rolled an 8.
with a critical.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you
Okay.
get a
All right,
critical,
but
your damage
otherwise,
dice
you're
are always
rolling
max.
dice,
Yep.
and then the DM secretly records the number against the monster's hit
Yeah.
points.
Tells you if he's bloody or not.
And then each time he's not bloodied. He's not bloodied.
Well,
Or
You'd have
he'll
to
make it more
ask,
fun than
but
role
yeah.
play that. Okay. Okay. At some point, he yells out, "He's bloodied."
Yeah.
What's that mean? You get bonuses.
You know he's at
damage?
half.
No, you know he's at half. There were some monsters who actually, I got the
Abilities fell
idea
off.
their
Yeah.
abilities fell off, or they gained more,
they
like they were
berserked.
berserk, or
So bloody's a term now that they can build
Term of
game
art.
mechanics around.
Okay.
Right.
So it might be, just making this up, Russ, your paladin says holy damage plus 5 if bloodied or something like that.
Maybe I don't
Against
have that, but yes.
zombies
Yeah.
or something.
it could
Could
that's
be
not
that.
on the sheet.
Okay.
but it
I can
could
see a
be.
barbarian character going nuts when he gets bloodied or something like
Okay.
that.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be
So
cool.
let's skip the paladin and go now the mage and the magic missiles, and because I've read this in an email, but our listening audience hasn't.
Okay.
So Russ, so they get to cast his magic missiles ad infinitum now.
well, what-
Fireballs
As
and
an
stuff?
action.
Yeah, what the mage's sheet looked like, what I liked about this was when I used to play Magic Users, and I used to play a lot of them, is it felt like a whole different complex game for the mage than it did, or the cleric even, than it did for the other characters, because the cleric
Okay.
and the mage had to manage this whole daily, what am I going to pick for the day stuff, right?
Yeah.
In this one now, your at-will stuff for them is spells, even the cleric, and some of those at-will spells are like heal, or magic missile,
Yeah.
or freeze, or a little fireball. He had a little fireball spell, I think,
Yeah.
too. But then he had encounter level spells, which were similar, but more powerful. I think
Yep.
maybe fireball's encounter level, once per encounter.
Oh, I see.
And then
And
what was
then-
interesting was his daily one. He could pick from a list, but he only had that one for the day. So that was kind of like the memorization mechanic.
Okay, wait. Pick from a list like it's a spell book, or he just
Yeah, like he would have. I think on his sheet he only had one, but but they preview what level 2 would be like for that character, and then at level 2 he has 2 different daily things he could pick from, and he could choose at the morning.
Like at the beginning of the day, he has to choose which of those two.
Like memorizing spells used to be.
Do you know if it's out of a spell book or the full list, or we don't know yet?
We don't know that part yet.
Okay. And is there a sorcerer wizard distinction in this game? Do you know?
No idea.
Okay. Do you know what that was back in the day?
Nope.
I remember
they made a distinction where a wizard has to study and memorize spells, but a sorcerer, the magic's innate. They sort of tried to make it different.
They
So I
feel
wondered
innate
if they melded that back in.
No, it feels innate.
Okay. I didn't really like that distinction personally. I know my DM likes it. I don't. Okay.
Well, I think there's definitely going to be people that dislike parts of this game.
Oh, how so?
It lost its a lot of, as Russ said, granularity.
Explain. What
like
do you mean?
the nitty gritty. Like the
okay. Like spell
I've
components.
taken X number of hit points of damage. When I sleep, it all comes back. Or, because I used to play a lot of wizards too, and you're not spending like when everybody else is scrounging firewood or doing, I've got to study. Well, I don't think there's going to be a lot of that. You get your arm lopped off or whatever, and then you wake up the next day. I mean, the DM's going to have to futz with that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I think it smoothed everything out.
Okay.
Is what the impression I got.
Are there racial bonuses? So if you're a dwarf, well, first of all, can you be things like dwarf wizards? Can you be any race with any class?
I don't know. We don't know the player's handbooks. We don't know.
I understand.
We were handed, but there are racial abilities like, but it's not like it used to be. Like the dwarven race, and because they can level up now, the dwarves' racial ability, I believe, was that. Remember we mentioned that to use a healing surge was a standard action?
Yeah.
For the dwarf, it's a minor action. So the dwarf can basically have to stand and doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity because it's minor.
So I would hit and do a healing surge.
And heal the same time makes it tougher.
Huge.
And I think that's going to become more per encounter as you level up, right? Or more hit points. Because your healing surge is going to go up in points, so that'll be a part of it.
One more sort of thing that I always wonder about, and then we'll look back here at the bullets. It's very old school D&D, and a lot of other role-playing systems didn't do this, whereby the magic users could not wear armor because it would mess up with their arcane abilities. And a lot of other spellcasting classes are like, no, the mage can wear armor, it's no problem, but their chance to do spells is lessened because it's complicated.
We didn't get into that much.
We didn't get into that, but our mage wasn't wearing armor.
Our mage was pretty much naked.
All right, I don't think those fundamentals will change.
Just wondered.
I don't know if that changes.
Okay. Do you guys feel like I left anything out in the combat or the magic systems?
Well, there's one other thing we should talk about, and that's action points.
All right, what are those?
Oh,
this is a neat mechanic.
Yeah, that was...
Oh, and our feats gone. Go ahead.
Well, I think...
No, feats are there.
Feats are some of this daily and at-will stuff.
Okay.
I mean,
no, there's actually something on the back of your sheet called a feat.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Yeah. My feat was actually pretty lame.
But what you can do now with these action points, it's another core thing in what you can do in an encounter. So you can spend an action point. You start with one action point per day. And you can spend an action point during a encounter to do a second standard action, right?
Yeah.
Or is it minor or standard? I think it was standard.
Standard.
So basically, you could use your action point to swing twice in a turn. Or something
that's
like
cool.
That, which is kind of a big deal.
What's
interesting is, if you don't, after each encounter, you get another action point.
Love it.
So
if you rest, you go back to only one action point. So here's the deal.
It's like adrenaline.
If you fight in a battle and you don't use your action point, you still have one, and now you get two.
Okay.
And if you fight another battle and you use action points, now you're at three, and you haven't rested, you get three.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, if you get in a really big fight, you can burn all three of those and have one turn where you just beat the snot out of something or whatever. And the idea behind it is, they mentioned, was that it encourages characters not to dawdle and rest all the time. Because you're tempted to just we'll just take another nap. But if you really kick crap out of something, just keep moving.
Yeah.
And you'll build up this little momentum. So it's kind of a neat. I thought it was an interesting idea. I don't know how it's actually play out in practice, but it's a neat concept.
Okay.
It
was very much like adrenaline surge.
Yes, it felt like that. Like you're just on a roll. We're grooving. Let's move.
I have.
And and that happened. We were like, well, we can stay here for a second, do some healing surges, but we were like, no, let's do it. Let's just keep going. You don't want to burn those rerolls. Well, they're not rerolls. They're additional attacks.
Those can be big
actions, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's great in a situation like the dwarf opens the door, right? Because the dwarf opens the door, he's like, oh crap. Well, if you can have extra action to re-equip or do something else, that'd be huge, right?
So my next batch of 3-4 questions are wrap-up questions. Is there anything nitty-gritty you guys want to talk about before I do wrap-up questions?
I
think I'm very impressed. You've done quite well, young
Thank you very much. Thank you. Craig, D&D 4.0 or Dark Heresy?
Well, you've broken it down here in the bullets, so I would say game system, D&D 4.0, bar none.
Okay.
How do you like it compared to Serenity?
I would rather play Serenity.
Yeah.
The combat system in Serenity will never stand up to this.
This does feel like a very
Yeah,
tactical.
it felt like a war game. It
was
really
cool.
felt like we
As
were
a miniature
playing
war game. You're
Descent.
like, ooh. I mean,
Yeah.
Dave Farr was just like drooling all over it basically.
Yeah.
He loves miniature war games.
Yeah. Okay.
But like Serenity, really, it's very cinematic in its descriptions of combat, but you're never gonna, let's just put some models down and play Serenity combat.
Yeah.
Whereas we were talking when we were doing the demo that it would be awesome.
To have
Like I
miniatures.
bought another one of those dungeon tile things, so we can just put out a
Yeah,
a
like those
dungeon and
things.
just have a really cool.
This would be fun just to play as a combat.
Yeah,
as a
combat
squad-based
game.
That's
fantasy magic combat
Yeah.
game.
That's what segues to the question I have for you, Russ, which is you and I have talked about, and a lot of our listeners write in, and they're like us, they're approaching the big 4-0, and it's role playing done for us because our imagination's shot, or there's only so many dungeons you can go down, kill a bunch of skeletons, and open a chest. Does this revitalize it? Is it different? Because we've talked about who has time for a real live role playing game.
I think it does a little bit because what blew me away was how easily I was able to grab one sheet of paper,
Yeah.
completely understand the mechanics because literally the DM, explained the game to me in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
We were all veteran role players and,
Right.
and war gamers, but even so, the sheets in front of us, we had all of them. We knew we innately knew what we were doing, and we were making some pretty interesting tactical decisions in those situations. I mean, the Halfling Thief was fun to watch because it was very clear about how, how a backstab works now. It's not this fluffy thing you have to figure out. It was clear that he could roll.
He
through
was brutal
attacks
with
of
the
opportunity.
backstabs.
Cool.
Yeah.
Once you figured out how he worked, and we started realizing all of our other daily powers and learned our characters and learned our party, we were all like, not even really taking a lot of time to think. We're just like, okay, if I do this and draw him off with my
And
challenge,
it was
and then
great.
the halfling shoots him in the back,
Yeah,
and
because the halfling was dancing around the battles almost
rogue
every
looked-
time.
Every
Okay.
class looked fun to play.
Yeah.
It really was. neat.
There wasn't a single class
Yeah.
that felt like I'm here because eventually you're going to need a healing touch,
Yeah.
and other than
Okay.
that, I'm useless.
Oh, just to segue, you probably don't know about it. The druid. That's what I feel like the druid's plight is. In other words, druids are cool. You read the Swords of Shannara, you want to play a druid, and then in D&D, it's like, how many times are you going to have a wall of stones? So I just wonder if maybe the druid's cooler to
Well, I
play.
haven't seen the druid. I don't know if the druid's even core anymore.
Just wondered. Okay. Now, on that note, it sounds like then, for the role players who want to sit around, and because it sounds like you're not role-playing villages anymore, right?
Well, you could.
We did.
Keep
We
in
were in a
mind,
village
the guy had
briefly.
2
I know.
hours to show the game.
Right.
And,
That's what
and role playing isn't really about the system as much, so he's not really.
Right.
He wanted to showcase
Well,
the mechanics.
that's what I
right?
want to ask you. Did you get a sense of, would it be just as cool to do the village encounter, or no?
Well, I think
Oh,
the
yeah.
village encounter is less mechanics oriented, like Russ said.
That's gonna
Although
be
you get the,
much more
you might
the-
get the experience for the daily quest or something.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
And each one of our character sheets actually had all of our abilities on it, including intimidation or bartering and stuff like that.
We did a little bit of that in the tavern. It was
Yeah.
fun. I mean, I don't think that part is bad at all. It's still just as strong as it's ever been.
Okay. This might be speculation, and then I think I have one more question. And still no idea of how these things are going to meld with other games like the Iron Kingdoms roleplay, right? Because it's a whole new system.
No
other word on that.
That's
Okay.
still highly unknown.
And anybody know when all this comes out?
Next month,
next
June.
next
No,
week.
June 6th.
Yeah, June
Yeah,
6th, right?
It's
Yeah.
it's next.
I am definitely buying the player's handbook. There's no doubt about it. in my
Me
mind.
too. Definitely. Oh, so I guess I'll end it with this. So if, me or Dave or somebody made a little one-off campaign,
I'd
it
be
sounds like you guys would play
Yeah.
as if
Oh,
it
yeah.
were board game night.
Yep.
If
Okay.
I don't know that I have time for a whole full-bore campaign,
Campaign.
but the combat system is so impressive to me. I'd love to sit down and play through it.
You know what it's making me
Honest.
think of, and this is my last comment, you guys chime in whatever you want to end with, is the play-by-emails. Sounds like you can do all the role-playing with the email, and then you
do a
can
battle.
do
Yeah.
a battle, either
Yeah, because
live.
that's the weakness to play by email is it's hard to, the combat is so
Yeah.
convoluted, and you're back to almost like version 1 D&D where you're all like,
Right.
was I really that close to the monster when I swung? And, we're all used to miniature games now, and the idea of the virtual battle mat,
Yeah.
which seems pretty obvious, actually, but the idea of that is pretty exciting.
All
That's how
right.
that works.
So, yeah, June 6th.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's worldwide launch, but that's at least
I
here.
believe
in
it
the-
is. I
Okay.
believe Myriad Games is having a big all-day Saturday party.
Yeah, I was going to say I've already ordered mine, pre-ordered mine from Myriad Games, and I'm pretty sure he has a online web store, so
Yes, he does.
check him out. I'm Rafe Hollywood Granger, and this is the Hollywood Minute. So last week we talked about mine and maybe your hollow feeling when playing an MMO, and more specifically, what distinguishes that feeling when playing, let's say, BioShock versus WoW. I had a lot of great emails on this subject, providing some great answers that I didn't think of or Russ or Craig thought of. But we're going to save that for a future mailbag. Okay, so the answer we came up as to why I might feel hollow when playing an MMO is the lack of the user, me, in creation and that there's no finality. That's it, at its essence. I feel relaxed after painting. That seems obvious. I'm creating my army, I'm creating my faction. No one would argue about that. But what about after Rainbow Six 2? We began to speculate that that's creation in the fact that it's a live encounter online with some friends, and the game ends. BioShock is the same way, in the sense it's like experiencing a movie that one gets to participate in. I get to create my path, and in the end the game. But what about WoW, you say? You create a character, you participate in live grouping, it's the same freaking thing, you may be thinking. Well, I can only be left with that for me, it's the infiniteness of the game. There's a new word for Craig. I must need a yin and yang to my gaming. Sort of like, without death, we don't appreciate life kind of thing. Without loss of love, one cannot experience love. Or for me, without an end in a game, I cannot experience accomplishment. Or, I'm left feeling hollow. Hey, I don't know, man. These are just the types of things that go on inside my head. I don't know if this is the answer. It's just what I think about. Dude, just be glad you're not Russ or Craig and have to hear these things on a daily basis. Well, that's my story. Good night.
Well, now we'd like to talk a little bit about organized play. And
What's organized play, Russ?
Thank you,
That's awesome.
Greg. Organized play is really any time you get together and play with your friends a little more formally than just, breaking out your models and playing a one-off game. So
And does your mom call you to set that up?
No.
Oh.
Which might. I don't know.
Okay, good.
When you're 12. Anyway.
I've been beaten by some guys whose moms set up their games.
So let's talk about different ways you can play your favorite miniature war games. We're talking about those today a little bit. And the first and probably the most famous is, of course, tournaments.
The dreaded tournament.
And let's talk a little bit about the pros. What makes tournaments fun and cool, and why everybody should at least try a tournament at least once in their favorite game. Probably the number one thing, of course, is the ultimate level of competition.
Everybody is out there for number one.
Right. And it's really the best way to compete because there's usually some form of official judge.
Yep.
Making sure, reviewing the lists to make
Even
sure.
playing field.
Right. They're all legal. The missions have probably been reviewed by the manufacturer of the game, or at least someone who really is into the game, right? You get to see a lot of very serious players in one spot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is great, because especially if you're in an area where you don't see a lot of other opponents, it's a fun way to see that many people are really into the game.
Your gaming dilettante doesn't generally show up to a tournament.
Right. And there's usually
that would
multiple...
be dabbler for those of you who
Dabbler.
are reeled into.
Or your Pete. Also, there's usually lots of different prizes for different things. So if you're into modeling, you might get a prize for painting. There's usually prizes for best general and some of these things. Prizes for best sportsmanship, theme, all kinds of different things. And check with your venue. Also, it's easy to plan for a tournament, right? Because it's one day, you know what's coming way down the pike.
Yeah. If you're just going to participate,
Right.
It's great.
And it's usually only a 1 or 2 day commitment, right, to go
Yeah.
to a tournament.
Yeah.
Because they're usually done.
You know what I like about the tournament the most? The competitive is actually a con for me, which I do see there, but I like it kind of forces you to get fully painted most of the times. That's what I like.
Yeah.
As pro as it's motivator, right? It gives you a
Motivator.
date
It's
a huge
certain,
motivator.
and you
Motivator,
can
yeah.
get excited about a new army or just revamping
Yeah.
your army and getting back into the rules. Now, there are, though, as you mentioned, Rafe, there are some things about tournaments that maybe not everybody would like. First of all, as you can see in the con section, it is a con that they also can be very competitive.
Yep.
Sometimes these things have awesome prizes,
Yeah.
or just people, when they get in a tournament environment, just take it to the next level, and sometimes this level is not where you want to be.
I find when I go to a tournament, I generally want to lose my first game, so I then end up right comfortable in the middle group of people who are roughly within my
Yes.
skill set and not those super competitive guys going for number one. Because I know I'm not going to get number one. I'm going for maybe best painted or
Yeah.
something like that would be nice. But I'm not going to get number one, so I don't want to play those games where...
Because the tournaments are usually a Swiss system, right?
Exactly,
Which means that the winners are matched from the winners the last round, the losers for the losers. If
Yeah.
you lose your first game, not that you'd ever throw a game.
Not that I would throw a game, but let's just say that if I'm losing my first game, I'm not as frustrated as I would be losing my last game.
And
middle of the pack.
Super quick, Craig, what do you think, since you usually get the painting, or, like to get the painting awards, do you feel weird where that's a subjective category being judged in a tournament setting?
Well, only in that I try not to let it upset me if I
Okay.
don't win it.
Okay.
And of course, there's that huge debate that's ongoing right now in the gaming community. Should it count towards best general
Right,
or overall?
I don't know
I mean,
either.
I've come one. I don't even know how this happened. One grand tournament, I came in the top 25 out of 100, and that was just. I don't even know how I did it. I don't even remember.
You didn't lose your first game.
I don't remember. Clearly, I did not lose my first game. But I mean, that was a one-time thing for me, and so it doesn't bother me that much. It's not something I think about because it's not the level at which I compete.
Right.
But what
Okay.
it does give me the subjectivity is if I don't win best painted, then I think, oh well, it wasn't. I mean, I've put some of my best stuff on the table and not gotten a very good painting score twice that I can think of because my style doesn't suit the judge. Oh, that's mostly dry brushing. I'm like, yeah, but it kicks the crap out of the guy that won, so I'm sorry that it's dry and whatever. But like you said, it's subjective, so it's something that I'm not like, I don't doubt my value as a human being if I fail.
Okay.
So yeah, and the other problem, one of the other challenges of a tournament is that you have no control over who you're going to play, right?
Yep.
So you're going to play sometimes people who are maybe overly competitive or just not your style of opponent.
Yeah.
And you do have to commit an entire day, so you can't really be your number one way to get a game in.
Right.
Because if it is your only way to get a game in,
Well,
you're
there
probably
are
not gonna-
there are people that do that.
But they also play other ways to practice, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, we
But there
know
are
some
people
people that every other weekend
But
they're trying to get a tournament in.
Average Joe probably can't make
Joe
the
hasn't
tournament.
played a game in 4.5 years.
Isn't that Pete?
And
No, Pete. No, Pete was in a tournament in 40K tournament.
Well, I'm going to
with
start
me.
calling it the average Pete, just,
Right.
Okay.
just so y'all know.
Okay.
And the last
As
thing-
a warning.
if you're thinking of organizing your own organized play with your group, running tournaments are challenging to say the least.
Fun but challenging.
It's fun. It's generally not that rewarding
It's
because
not-
people
it's
always
not
whine about it at the
relaxing.
end, no matter how good a job you do.
I won't do it.
Take it from someone who's done it before.
I've done it.
We've all actually, everybody in the group's done it at least once. And,
No, I've never
I
done a
thought you
tournament.
ran one. You
Nope.
did the DACA reunion.
That wasn't
was
a
that?
tournament.
Oh, right. Good call. Good call on that one, too. But anyway, but they are a bit to organize. You really got to know what you're doing. Not recommended for the first time event
Oh, no.
organizer. But anyway, they are very fun, and you should definitely try a tournament at least once if you really are interested in seeing what
Absolutely.
the
It's a great
highest
experience.
level of right,
Absolutely.
competition is. But just don't go in. If it's your first time, just go in thinking, hey, I'm going to have my butt kicked, but it's going to be fun. Now, the next way you can play with a group is, and probably the most common way most people do it nowadays, is leagues.
Depending on the size of your group.
Right. And the idea behind
Yeah.
a league, for those who have never tried it before, this is actually the way we got started. Think of a bowling league. So really the job of a league is just give you an excuse to make your games count towards something.
Right.
Yep.
And then someone, usually the league organizer, records the results of each game, and there's some kind of a format that...
Now, is this not how Daka Daka got started?
It is how DACA, the website, got started. It was a bunch of local guys trying to record their league games and have a URL to remember where to go to record them. So what the idea is, you do a battle, you get some points for winning, losing, or drawing the battle. It goes into a spreadsheet, somebody's computer, and then someone keeps track of who's doing what, where in the league. What I like about what this format is good for is it's a very casual format.
Yeah.
Right. You can play a different person each week. If you're, it doesn't matter who you play. Some league formats you can play the same person twice. It's easy to get a game, and you go to your local venue on the game night, and someone's there. If you've got a 10-person league, you're always going to find a game, probably, right? It's easy for new players to jump in. It's new player friendly.
Yep.
Because most people are willing to teach you. You're not locked. Some leagues you're not locked into a list. Some leagues you are, depending on the league. But you can make a change if you're not like a tournament where you go in and just get your butt kicked.
Right.
It can handle a very large number of players, right? We've had leagues at DACA where the stores hate it. We had
oh,
40-player
wow,
leagues,
yeah.
divisions, and everything.
Those are the
Yeah.
good old days.
Yeah.
Of course, I
Very
still
fancy.
played the same losers. These two guys in this room in particular.
But the nice thing about it is it can handle a vast number of players without a problem. You can have a lot of variety in prizes, right? The Privateer Press League has all kinds of cool ones
Yep.
that they give. Some companies give you the missions to run your own. Other players organize them themselves. That's all fine. And it's actually pretty easy to organize a league. All you got to basically do is hang a poster in your favorite store, tell people to come to your league, and then be willing to gather the battle
Keep
results
track,
and keep
yeah,
track of them in
yeah.
the spreadsheet.
Yeah, and I think the web makes that the secret these
It
days.
does. And nowadays, for our league, we
Yeah.
use Google Docs. I just have a spreadsheet
Yeah,
in there, and I record the battles, and everybody can look at them. You share it. I mean, and then you can use one of the Yahoo groups or Google groups or whatever to
Yeah,
keep track,
yeah.
keep your guys in touch with the mailing lists. It's really easy. So it's a great way to play. The downside, though, to leagues is that there's no real story or campaign in leagues.
Right.
We've tried before, but when it gets right down to it, it's really just an excuse to play a game and have it count for something besides just a
You
game.
can't make it. You can't multitask it because then everything falls apart.
Yeah, it gets too formalized, and then you start running into the problems with the campaign side, which we'll get to in a minute. It can be exploited. We had problems when our league got really serious, and we started giving away these really hard to get trophies and prizes, and even the privateer one is really, really good prizes. We have a good group of guys right now that no one would do that, but we did have problems with what we called bottom feeding.
Bottom feeding, yep.
The player, if you only need to get a certain number of games in the league, and it doesn't matter who you play, you could obviously only play new players and get easy wins, and so we had to come up with this complicated ranking system. And
that was towards the end. In fact,
it was near the but so basically it can be exploited. So it's it's not like a tournament where it's a very structured format for that.
It needs to be regulated. Basically by the group itself. Social pressure.
Yeah, you probably can get away without it in the beginning. Most people can, but as the league grows,
you need to create the culture. Is what I'm saying. If you create a culture that allows for bottom feeding, then you're going to eventually get it, depending on the kind of guys you're with. So you just want to keep a culture where it's open and friendly and everybody's kind of laid back. I mean, we ended up getting quite a reputation, the DACA guys, towards the end there.
Yeah,
being local
stores would not be happy to see us come in.
Right, because we were so.
But
the good thing about the league, there's a little pro there because you can play so often. You get pretty good at your
really
game.
Good, yeah.
Because it's so easy to get a game in, and you play so often. When you play people who don't play very often, you can just totally, if you're not careful, really literally crush them.
Right.
Because you're so used
Depending
to playing
on
all
your
your
weight,
hardcore opponents, right?
I mean, Russ, since he's been dieting, probably would have a harder time.
Well, he is
crushing.
the silverbacked gorilla. So.
He is the silverbacked gorilla, indeed.
Yes.
And last about the cons here is it's a good test of player skill, but not as good as a tourney, I'd say, in terms of if you really want to see if you're the man. You probably want to go to a tournament.
That speaks more to composition, I would think, though, wouldn't it? I mean, you're bringing your A game to a league
No, you're
game.
right, but you're local with your. I mean, because it's exploitable. If you win a league, you're not saying as much as if you win like a
right.
GT.
Yeah, and it takes more effort, I think, to get to a tournament.
Yes.
So you're seeing
I
a
get
more
burned
hardcore.
out at leagues.
Yeah.
Just get tired
Well,
halfway
they can-
through.
I mean,
They can go long ways.
the culture we've created is so league heavy. I mean, we're pretty much, except for some brief periods of time, Russ and I in particular, we've been leaguing it since 1996. Exactly.
Yep.
Well, the great thing about the league format, I'd say that's my favorite format. The reason it's my favorite format is it's real easy to set up. I mean, you can run
Come and go as you please.
Yeah.
and you can play whoever you like in your
Jump
group.
in the middle of it.
If there's 4 people in the league, fine.
And it's always exciting. Like you can say, like when we walked in the game castle, well, we have a War Machine league. You do? Oh, I've been dying to play War Machine. I don't have, so as soon as you say the word league, for some reason, people think it's this great thing. It's just 2 guys in a basement with a spreadsheet. But the cool thing about it is people will start playing it and get going with it. So it's fun. Now the third most common way, and probably on its surface the most exciting thing to try, is the campaign.
Yeah.
Most game systems have a campaign thing in the back of the book.
Right.
Or, Privateer does, GW does, Mordheim and Necromunda are all around the campaign concept. There's now
Flames of War. We were
Flames
in
of
an
War.
awesome
We had an
Flames
awesome
of War
Flames of War
campaign till there was a falling out.
Now, let's say, let's
Till
talk
it
about
died.
this. So first, the campaign issue is some campaigns have maps. Probably most have maps. But some campaigns don't have maps, right? Like the Necromunda structure.
The XCAM.
The XCAM, which was sort of this hybrid
really
campaign
great
league
idea
thing
Russ
I
had.
tried. That has been superseded by the Privateer one, which is
I've been
probably-
waiting for that. We're going to talk about
Well,
not
Privateer is
in
a
this
good job.
segment, but we're going to mention the XCAM because that's a brilliant
that's
idea.
its own show.
That's its
And
own show.
XCAM, the B5 XCAM was awesome.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So,
We'll talk about
yes.
so I want to tell the listeners. So we're going to get to this, but I believe the only kind of campaign is a failed campaign, and so Russ. I love campaigns, but they just always fail, which we're going to talk about. And Russ came up with a concept called an XCAM, which solves that problem, which we won't be able to get to today, but we will.
Yeah, well,
Eventually.
We'll talk about it later. But the problem here's the thing of a campaign on paper. What looks cool about it is you've got a great story.
Yeah, story.
It looks you get this,
Factions.
Well, you got
and
maps. And you're going to conquer territory, and you're going to have a pin where your army
Pins
is, and you're going to grow with power.
It's
and
true.
You're
You're
going
going to write fluff.
You're going to gain. Yeah, you're going to write little stories each week about what you did, and you're going to get a new territory every week, and there's going to be attrition.
You're going to plot against your friends.
Right. You're going to have to worry about who dies, and then you're going to have to manage to fight with one less main unit that
You
you
got a
really
couple
need.
real drama queens going right
So,
now.
but the problem is, and you got to have this great story. The problem is, and the good thing also is, they're really not hard to run because generally this thing structures all that up for you in some books.
Right,
Most of them have a stroke format for them. Now, you got to keep a little bit of organization, though. You got to track where everybody's pin is on the map somehow. And there's all kinds of tools for it. GW's got a cool system now. You could print out a map, and you can do it online, of course. But here's what usually happens, and chime in if you think I'm wrong here. But here's what happens in my opinion. I've never been in a map-based campaign that has ever ended as intended, if that makes sense.
Yep.
They end,
Yep.
but no one's really ever satisfied in the end. And the reason usually is because
Lots of reasons.
one of the hardest thing I find is you have to, especially with a map, but even in the regular ones, in a map, you'll get to the point where you got to play a certain opponent because your territory is bordering his territory, and you got to fight him. Mm-hmm. And in the same turn phase, everybody else got to fight the same person. So if one guy can't make it that week, the whole thing's screwed up.
Yeah.
And so you gotta
Or
wait
if it's
another
one
week.
person nobody wants to play.
Right. So you get in these situations where
Had that happen.
you can't choose your opponent, and even if you go with the idea that everybody in the campaign's cool and you all want to play them, it's only a 4 or 5 person campaign, you still have the problem with if that guy can't make it that week. Well, what do? Do you go without him, but you can't because he'll be behind a turn, or do you try to catch up? So that always ends up being part of the
I'm going to
challenge.
call a spade here and make fun of myself. And I just realized I'm not a team player, really. So
You just realized that?
I did have that epiphany.
Wow.
As I was thinking, like, why
He's
don't-
the only one on the show with a nickname.
Right. Well, but here's what happens, right? So I'm supposed to play Craig.
Self-bestowed.
Right.
I'm supposed to play Craig in the campaign, and I'm all set to play Tuesday morning. Tuesday's our gaming day, and Tuesday afternoon comes, and I don't want to play. I just don't want to play. So I roll a random Rafe roll, and we roll...
Which we've decided will be on his tombstone.
Yeah.
By the way, that is Rafe's real nickname.
So,
It's not on
so
the
go ahead,
podcast,
Russ, and
Random Rafe.
explain what Random Rafe is real quick. I know we're tight on time. but-
All right. Well, Random Rafe has got his nickname because Rafe has a tendency to...
Have we talked about this before?
I don't
No,
think so.
not on
plan
air.
to
No.
be in an event and then not make it
Right.
due to whatever reason, and
But
it's
I'm-
not always a good reason.
No, no,
Sometimes
but
it is.
Sometimes it's a great reason, but sometimes
Sometimes,
it's like,
right.
you know what, guys, I decided I'm going to
But
do
I'm
some
always
World of
honest.
So he'll
Warcraft.
say,
Right?
He'll say, I'll
Yeah,
give you a random
yeah.
Rafe. This week I might play, and he'll even give you the numbers. 1 through 4, I'll be there. 5, I'm going to stay home. I'll leave early, and 6, I'm going to play WoW all night. Won't show up.
Right. Now, even before it was Random Rafe, though, I was always honest. I'm
Yes.
like, I'm
Yeah.
just not coming.
You're honest.
Okay.
It's just random when
Now,
you'll be there or not.
and we'll get back to the campaign in a minute. But what just my epiphany was,
I don't know how we got here.
yeah, my epiphany was, because I want to say this for our listeners. I view gaming like this: if it's 5 o'clock and I'm tired and I just want to go home and watch American Chopper, I just want to go home. I don't
American Chopper.
I don't view an obligation to my buddy Craig because I'm like, it's gaming. Now I know that that's weird, but my point, and we'll get into Random Rafe later. But my
random.
point is only that
Snake Eyes.
that's why campaigns fail because you get me right. We're all set to play, and I don't show up, and now Craig doesn't have a game, and now Russ can't play Craig, and blah blah blah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you might have a random Rafe in your party, too, who's watching Orange County Chopper instead of coming to play a war game with you.
Or One Tree Hill.
that he signed up for. Well, but that's a good,
Or the
actually,
Britney Spears bio.
in the end, Hollywood, you got to a point.
I do like those.
And your point was that it does take a commitment from every player.
Yep.
Right? A real
team
commitment.
And that's,
commitment.
Team
and that's where
effort.
it does fall apart.
And that's where it falls
usually.
apart. Because no matter how good you all want to be committed to something, it's also a challenge for RPGs, right? Because you can't always make it and get your
Yep.
And then what do you do when the guy's got a good excuse like Russ and his daughter's, have
Well, yeah.
pneumonia?
Right.
I mean, well, then what do you do?
That's the real problem. You may have a random Rafe too, but the real problem is that simply,
Right. No, right.
you're a type of gamer now, by the way. You're now a random Rafe. There's just a gamer class.
Right.
Okay. There's a Matrix gamer. There's a random Rafe gamer.
There you go.
But anyway, so that.
I'd
is
rather
one of
play
the
a
cons.
random Rafe gamer.
Because I'm
He's
always
there,
honest.
He's fun.
I'm honest.
But he's
Yeah,
got to be
yeah.
there. So that's one of the big problems. So timing games, and then the other problem is, this is the problem with the Mournheim Necromunda models, where there's no map, which is great.
Yeah.
But when I say models, I mean methods of play, not the little miniatures. They were always lovely.
Yeah. How does that scale?
The problem is that attrition, unfortunately, as cool as attrition sounds on paper, real life attrition,
Sucks.
if you're the one being attritioned against, sucks. It just sucks.
Well, that'd be awesome if my losses carry over from week to week until I end up playing with 3 guys
Right.
versus your 20.
We had an awesome Flames
Right.
of War campaign, and the attrition was brutal to the point where we kept rechanging the rules in mid-league, and it
Yeah.
got all very ugly.
It did. It
mid-campaign.
actually,
That
it
broke the
actually
league up
splintered the
because
gaming group up.
attrition was so brutal, and everyone wanted to change rules. But the people who weren't getting attrition bad didn't want to change the rules, and it was
It was a bunch of older men. They
it
were
was
older.
very nice.
We were the youngest
great
guys in that group.
and it just turned. People just got this weird thing. in their head.
It was brutal.
So, as sad as it is to say,
The only kind of campaign is a failed campaign.
That's not true.
no, Craig. Now here's the thing: we don't have time in today's episode.
No, I won't.
But I have the XCAM idea does sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's not really a campaign. But Craig
Yes,
does think he's got some systems
I liked it.
up his sleeve that would be so exciting, so action-packed, that even Random Rave could not avoid them for long.
Well, no, I would never, ever commit random raid to something like that.
I didn't get this memo.
What's the Mighty Empire? I did an adjustment of the Mighty Empire's engine.
What the heck is Mighty Empire?
Mighty Empires is a Games Workshop
Oh, that
product.
tile
The
thing.
tile thing. It's awesome. It's an awesome product. It's plastic. It's great. It looks cool. It paints up easily and quickly, and it looks really neat. It's a 3-dimensional map. It's got rivers. It's got plains. It's got forests.
So how is this not, though, the normal map-based campaign? in the end?
The system that I came up with actually pretty much times out at 6 games. So all you really need is a commitment of 6 days.
That's awesome. Because the
Okay.
Privateer campaign we tried, that Rafe and I thought about, when we did the math on how many months it was going to take us to finish the damn thing at 1 game a week, it worked out to be like a year and a half. So,
Right, yeah. I mean, it's a very, very simplistic campaign system. Not only that, but it also addresses who you have to play.
Yeah.
Because basically you're not building an empire and fighting the other guys to expand your empire until your empires meet each other. Until then, you're just representing some random force that's meeting out on the plains somewhere. So, it doesn't matter that I'm at one side of the board and Rafe's all the way at the other side of the board. We can fight each other. Okay? And all it represents is a skirmish as our forces meet and fight, and we build influence in our little empires because of victories or defeat.
Basically, you think you've solved a lot of the problems.
It's not that campaign that gets you all drooling about like, oh, and there's gonna be because there's no attrition, there's no there's slight variations in point values and things like that. And the key is, we ended up to defeat my own argument. Okay, it did end up it didn't really die. No, on the 6th game, which would have been the game that
Because the only kind of campaigns are Wait for it.
I don't
Wait
accept
for
it. I do not accept it.
failed.
I do not accept your reality. Okay,
I reject your reality.
because
Some people
Ragnar
don't.
was so ahead of everybody else. Everyone knew that he only needed to win one more game to expand to 10 territories, which would win the game for him. And at the same time, Dave decided he didn't like 40k anymore, so he didn't want to play. His nephew that he got into the game decided he didn't want to play anymore either. So yeah,
Which was back to our original topic. The
2 random
Rafe
Rafes and a really, really good player who no one could touch.
So let's just suffice to say that there is currently a quest amongst our group to figure out a way to
I
make
did it. I will make it
cool
work. Damn it.
fluffiness of a campaign playable in some kind of reasonable amount of time with a reasonable number of people.
I'm
And
telling you, man, Mighty Empires, and you can do it with any
right.
game system.
Well,
and
work
I
it out.
promise this will be short because I hate listening to podcasts where there's this like hanging question. The XCAM that Russ created basically it's not dependent on Rafe. It
We don't have time
allows
to cover this.
No, it just answers it. It allows other people to plug in. That's all I want to say.
All right.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know either.
Okay.
But it answers the hanging
This is
question.
because you're all
There is
tired.
no hanging question because you just answered it. Now,
Right.
the fact that it makes no sense apparently doesn't matter.
All right. But anyway, so that's our brief topic of organized play, and in the future we'll probably go in depth on some
Into
of these
several
and
different
more,
points,
and we'll
yeah.
talk about different ways we've run leagues in the past, maybe some tournament ideas, and even campaigns. So stay tuned for that. in the
I'm
future.
telling you, man, Mighty Empires, it will spread like wildfire across the world.
Or something.
You ever notice that gamers everywhere are constantly trying to organize themselves or get other people to organize for them, and yet there's never been a group more difficult to organize? Seriously! It's worse than herding cats or managing a bunch of 14-year-olds. And yet mention a league or a campaign, and everyone wants in. It's almost as if there's a lemming-like element to the gamer psyche that calls to group sociological dynamics doomed to fail. We like playing games with individuals, but we'd really like to play games in an organized environment. as if deep down inside we each see ourselves as some intellectual equivalent of the Blue Angels and we can't wait to slide into position. But what happens, invariably, when we try to organize? Well, firstly, there's that element of gaming culture that will complain when handed a $10 bill 'cause it wasn't a 20. They're gonna complain no matter what, though. But even the more sedate gamers are going to start moaning and whinging eventually. In a league, it's too hard to get games. Physician, heal thyself. Everyone's too competitive. It is a game with a winner and a loser, right? In a campaign, I'm playing the same person over and over again. The point being, each time I lose the game, it gets less fun. Realism versus fantasy. War really is hell when your points don't reset. Of course, you've got tournaments, but if you think the competition is fierce in a league, you ain't seen nothing till you see the sorts of shenanigans you'll run into in a tournament. I once had a guy who misheard me when I said how long I'd been playing. He thought I was a noob. So he started giving me bad advice through the whole game, so his gloriously painted Eldar could traipse, which is what Eldar do when they're angry in case you didn't know, to victory at the tournament. Apparently I wasn't the only one he tried this on, though, because he was later disqualified. He would have been one of the bad cats. In the end, whether it's tournaments, leagues, or campaigns, we all want in, and then, just as soon as it starts, we all seem to want out again. It's that age-old dilemma my grandfather always used to say when I would plead for a little more cash for that really cool Matchbox car. There are two tragedies inherent in the human condition: to fail to achieve your heart's desire, and to achieve it. My grandfather was pretty deep. He was also not given to handing out extra cash no matter how cool the little car was. But I'm left with the thought that this must be true. We want in on all these great organized playgroups, and we love to plan for them and come up with little stories and paint up objective markers and the like. But when we're in them, we'd rather be somewhere else. Oh, I guess the grass is always greener. Can I fit any more trite sayings into this little missive? People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. The next guy might think you're the jerk. Still waters run deep. The guy who takes forever to deploy is probably about to kick your butt. He who hesitates is lost. If you don't speak clearly and early in a new game environment, you're going to end up playing the guy no one else who knows him wanted to play. Two heads are better than one, but seldom allowed in a tournament setting and frowned upon in leagues and first dates. Ignorance is bliss, and no one at the tournament knows you've got the rulebook memorized. I think I'm getting a little bit off topic, but I think I smell a "do you ever notice" for the future. Anyway, in the end, we all want in on these great-seeming groups, and then we bail. Is it because every gamer group has those guys who just aren't team players? Is it because deep down the human soul thinks it yearns for organization but really just wants its freedom, like William Wallace? Or is it maybe just that, in the end, playing at war, when it's a game and several times removed from reality, is far more fun than a couple steps closer in, where the little men don't automatically get up again, and a loss has more real, and obvious to those around you, consequences? I'm sure I don't know, really. But I'm also sure, just like my cat comes back to the house no matter how far out I drive before leaving him in the woods, gamers will line up for the next league, tournament, or campaign. And then, let the whinging commence. Good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.